Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the SimGrid Super Saturday event, the Battle of Barcelona, for a very wet Barcelona, as you can see on your screen there. My name is Daniel Handover, and joining me in the commentary box this evening is Courtney. Connall, how are you doing this afternoon?
Yeah, I'm good, man. I'm very excited for this one. I think in the 12 months or so that I've been actually covering SimGrid races, I don't think I've ever covered a multi-class race. So I'm very excited for this one. And we've, of course, just seen the conditions here as we've gone live with the broadcast. So that makes things even more interesting.
It does indeed. This is very, very true. Absolutely. Also, as well, we need to mention a slightly different format this time as well, isn't it, Connall? So not only do the drivers have to deal with these sort of treacherous conditions, but they've also got a slightly different format of they've got a 3 mandatory driver swaps. It's a team of 2 for this particular main headline event with a 35-minute stint timer. So that just adds another element to the mix, doesn't it?
Yeah, and with wet racing, normally, you know, the longer that you stay out, the more adaptable and more comfortable you get with the conditions. But with the sort of short stop and start stints that these guys will have, they'll be going back out on track and could find themselves having completely different conditions than what they raced in their first stint. So again, it just adds another layer of challenge for the drivers.
I think that's the main thing, isn't it? It's the different conditions that will be constantly changing. I think that's the one thing that drivers really do have to watch out for. Is, as you say, people can go out from their first to second stint, and they might very well be in completely different conditions. So the adaptability is definitely very much there. We've got the usual GT3 and GT4 cars as we have normally seen with these events. I'm excited, actually. Do you know what? I've never commented. This is my first commentary with an event that's absolutely in these sort of conditions. It's very, very exciting. I absolutely cannot wait. I suppose, Connor, for yourself, have you done much sort of wet weather driving? What's it been like for you? Like, what are the main sort of challenges that all the drivers are going to have to face today? Apart from obviously these conditions, you know, the changeable weather, what have they really got to look out for?
Yeah, well, Barcelona is a tricky track as it is, even in the dry with the undulation. And, you know, it's going to be a challenging track. Of course, you can see the curbs and stuff like that. It will be slippy. But even in the dry, this track is very tough. It's tough on tyres as well. You know, you look at the turn 2, turn 3, turn 4 section. That is just a tyre shredder. So we could see some people maybe step up their pace or have quick pace early on and just start to fade a little bit in their stint. But what they're aided by is the fact, of course, as we said, they have 35-minute stint timer. It'll be interesting actually to see will it go, you know, the full 2 stints on a set of tires, or what will they do with the fuel strategy? They could go for basically 4 sprint methods. So yeah, I do actually think we will see some variety in strategy here this race.
Well, it'll be interesting to see. Not too long to find out, though. But before we do get ahead with qualifying, we do have a hot lap for you so you can see what goes on and how to navigate your way through one of the most famous circuits on the F1 calendar.
2.905 miles. That's the length here at the Circuit de Catalunya Barcelona as we go on board the Nissan GTR Nismo GT3 on a hot lap here in Barcelona. Heading down into turn 1, down from 6th at just over 260 kph, down to 3rd gear through Elf, the right-hander, before the left at 2. Through into the right-hand sweeper here at 3, Renault, 4th gear. Start building speed, allow the car to gently, through its momentum carry, drift to the left-hand side before the next right-hander at Repsol, down from 5th to 3rd. And again, just kiss that apex on the right hand side and let the car do all the work. As it goes over to the left, you bring it back to the right before the next left-hander here at Seat, down to 2nd gear, one of the slowest corners on this fantastic circuit. Down through the left-hand sweeper before the next corner at Worth, taken at 3rd gear at about 120 kph. A little bit of correction for oversteer there on the Nissan. Through into Campsa, 4th gear, now start accelerating all the way down to La Caixa. Now up into 5th gear, pushing over 230 kilometers an hour, hard on the brakes, down into 2nd, 70 kph on the apex of La Caixa before you head back up the hill through the left and right hand complex, which is the Banc Sabadell. Trying to wrestle with the car, the back end's trying to step out there as you're trying to nail the traction, also having to short shift down through Europe car. and then into the RACC chicane. The RACC, the local ASN for Spain itself, coming through New Holland, tight on the apex, pulling fourth gear as you hit the apex itself at 160 kph, and that's a hot lap here at Barcelona.
And there we are, Connall, a lap of Catalonia. You've got to be careful, actually, as well. I was noticing on that hot lap as well, the amount of actual, it's pretty slidey. It's quite slidey, actually, pretty tail happy for that hot lap. And that's one thing drivers have got to watch out for as well. You've always got to be cautious, always got to be careful. You can really take them, as you were saying earlier, you can really take this quite a lot out of these tyres if you're not careful, especially with these GT3 cars. They've got quite a lot of power behind them, haven't they?
Yeah, well, obviously this is the track of choice for F1 when they come here and they do their testing over the course of the winter, and really they do that because it's an all-rounder track. You can get a lot of data and information, and it does relay to a lot of the tracks over the course of the calendar. So when you get an all-rounder track, you can see here on the screen, of course, you can see the tight last section, which is going to be very tricky in multi-class, and then you've this sort of fast flow in first sector. It's it's really challenging, and what we have seen before in both the World Cup and Sprint Cup races here is that things can get very tight because some of the drivers have the advantage and some of the cars have the advantages in sector 1, and then that advantage just gets eaten up in the final sector. So we do normally see quite balanced races, and hopefully we have another cracker here.
Absolutely, I'm sure we will. We've been told that qualifying is indeed live. We've got the first 10 minutes of qualifying will be with the GT3 cars, and the latter half of qualifying will be with the GT4s. Interesting enough as well, Connall, we've been told as well, and we've been given notes that the GT3s have been given a very stern warning about making sure that they make safe and clean passes on the GT4 cars. Now, that's something, again, naturally you would think would come, and you've got to have some self-preservation. But sometimes as well, I think you can actually, and I think we've all been in this situation before, you can get a little bit overzealous on the overtake. So the GT3 drivers have been asked to take extra caution in the GT4s, making sure that they make some nice, clean and safe overtakes.
Yeah, and especially that last sector will be where I think the GT3s will start getting impatient, especially if they're being hunted down or if they're in a group of 3 or 4 cars. I think they'll start to get very, very impatient there, and we may see some incidents that the stewards will have to take a look at, to put it kindly. So watch out for that, and realistically, of course, we should see the GT3s using their straight line speed and power advantage that they do have. But sometimes, of course, is not always the case, and it's very easy to get wrapped up in the emotional side of a battle. But I think in the long run, a little bit of patience will pay off very, very well for these drivers.
Absolutely, it's a marathon, not a sprint, isn't it? I think that's normally the best way to put it. But we've got GT3 cars out on track at the moment. You can see the track map on the right hand side. Obviously, all the people in the pits, they're all the GT4 cars, or majority of them. But currently on the screen now from XL Racing is Felix Rupert, who's just going through. That's through turn 7 and 8. Again, up now the hill, going through a very, very fast turn 9 now. Great camera angles here as well. I do love static camera angles. I don't know what it is about it, but it gives you a sense of the speed that these cars can carry through. Because these cars, to be fair, Connall, they're not slow by any stretch of the imagination. The GT4 cars, they're not slow. But these cars, they're just on a different level, which I suppose drivers actually need to use to their advantage and utilise the power and the extra speed that these guys have got to make that clean and safe overtaking.
Yeah, well, you find sometimes in multi-class races that some of the drivers, maybe the less experienced drivers, they go out and track and they're just in empty tarmac, and they're just doing hot laps or race runs, and they're in a server by their own, or they're playing single player when they're doing their practice, and that's all well and good for getting the feel in the car. But when you get into that situation where you've got a GT4 in front of you, you've got a couple of cars in front of you, you're being chased down by one of your rivals, then you don't have the experience of having to deal and understand, where is the GT4 slow, where am I really gaining on them, is it mid-corner, is it in this particular section, and you don't have that information and that past experience that some of the other drivers will have gained. And you can find yourself actually, especially near the last sector, losing a couple of seconds just being stuck behind a couple of cars, because let's not forget, they're in their own battles too.
Yep, this is true. Again, there's lots of things to think about, always lots of things to think about when it comes to endurance racing. But we've just got coming across the line now in the Lamborghini number 15, Federico Rossana, who's just, the number 52, who has just gone across the line to start another flying lap. One thing I've noticed as well, whether people are starting to get used to it, they're taking their time to get used to everything, but they could probably, or I don't know whether this is a normal thing with Assetto, Corsa, Competizione, but they're being a little bit cautious on the curb. Now, could that be, again, kind of green track, maybe? They want to just take it nice and easy. As I say that, Federico decides to prove me wrong and goes completely over the curb, going through into turn 4. But yeah, do you reckon that's one thing as well? Because there's a bit less grip now, track is a little bit green, they're just being a little bit cautious?
Yeah, it could be a tire thing. You know, it could be people just not want to make a little bit of a show of themselves at the very start of a broadcast. But yeah, I see a lot of these guys. Actually, I've raced with a few of these guys in the Sprint Cup on Thursday, and in my experience, they are fast from the first flying laps. So we should see some very quick times coming in pretty quickly.
Absolutely. Well, we've just been told as well that I believe Rupert is just about to be potentially going through on the fars. That's Felix Rupert, currently in P1 at the moment, and he's gone a 43.080. So not quite dipped into the 42s, but I mean, near as makes no difference. That's not going to be far off, and I'm sure that's going to be. I'm sure that's going to be a time that it's going to come down. We've got another couple of people as well. Bear in mind, this is just starting as well. This is just starting. We've got as well, that's Ruoff that's 6/10 up. So he's now gone in P2. So that's Yannick Ruoff. He's now in second place, just under 3/10 behind Felix Rupert. That is Alistair Leckie that we can see now on the screen in the Aston Martin, one of the only Aston Martins, one of two, I believe, on the grid at the moment for the GT3 category. So he is just going through again. That's going through up into turn 9. So yeah, we're going to see, and these times are going to come down. They haven't got very long left to qualify now, bear in mind. You've got 10 minutes of qualifying for the GT3 car, so these guys have got to be out on track and going for it as much as they can. Yeah, I think this is going to be a close qualifying, but a tense qualifying as well, because one mistake, that's cost you a good chunk of your, you think, a minute and a half. That's cost them just over a minute and a half of these guys' lap times, and that's really quite crucial.
Yeah, it is, and actually you can see the car currently in 5th place, number 89, the Lamborghini, currently in the pits. Now, there's only 3 minutes to go of that GT3 session, of course, as Leckie moves up into 9th and doing it for the Aston Martins, which, of course, as you said, there's only 2 of, and they're not quite looking as competitive as the Audis and the McLarens right now. But yeah, it's very interesting that I've seen a couple of drivers going into the pits and leaving themselves really with only one hot lap left. You know, it is a short qualifying session. By the time that you get your warm-up lap and one flying lap in, say a banker lap, then you're really only looking at the clock and you see, oh, 5 minutes to go. So the time really is of the essence. So if I was doing this qualifying session, I would find myself filling up for the entire stint and just staying out on track.
I think you've got to, really, haven't you? You know, you've absolutely got to, because at the same time, like, you can jump into the bits and jump back out, but it disrupts the flow, doesn't it? And yeah, I think for the time these guys are actually out on track, I don't necessarily think it's all that worth coming back in the pits to to have less fuel on your both runs. Brad Smoke, he's now in P11, the 958 Ferrari, in a camo satin styled liveried Ferrari. That's an interesting colour scheme. I've not actually seen a Ferrari ever in that colour, but I quite like it, actually. It looks very, very good. So yes, currently in P11 at the moment, 1.2 seconds off pole position, but only importantly though, he's only 700ths off of Bellucci in P10. So the P10 battle, we've just been told as well that Bellucci is actually going pretty quick indeed, so he's going to move up the field, I am sure, if he can maintain the rest of his lap together. There he is, Gianluca Bellucci. So he's going through again up into turn 9. Looking at the sector times, it is indeed going to be a very quick lap if he can hold it together. Currently 1.2 seconds off, kicks up a little bit of dirt on the exit of turn 9. That's okay, you've got to be a bit careful, but I believe he would have gotten away with that. Going to hard braking zone into turn 10. And this is the complex. This is probably runs over the curb a little bit. That will cost him a little bit of time. Not too much, though. But yeah, again, Connall, as you were saying, this is where these guys really need to keep this car in check here and not do what Bellucci just did there and run over the curbs, because that will disrupt the balance of the car.
Yeah, it really looks as though this sector is the don't get greedy section. You can see yourself trying to, at best, gain a couple of tenths on your PB, but at worst, you can completely scrap your lap. But Bellucci, he's been driving the Ferrari a lot. He's been driving it all season in the Sprint Cup, and now he is driving it again in this, but he doesn't improve. So that we've seen him drifting a little bit wide into this hairpin that we're cutting to here. Drifting a little bit wide, didn't invalidate the lap, I don't think. He kept two wheels on the curb, and that is very, very close again to invalidation, but he just sort of lost his drive, and there's a small bit of elevation there, and it just kills the drive. As soon as you lose a bit of momentum and then you start going uphill, you see your delta just crumbling away.
As the thing is, there's never a more sad thing than when you can see, you actually know that mistakes have been made. You can see that delta being lost. But you've got to try and manage it as well, haven't you? Like you've got to make sure that you can put it behind you nice and quickly and just maintain moving forward and continue to move forward. Grant Willebott, he stays in P6. Yes, at the moment for one of quite a few McLarens actually out on track. I believe there's 4 that are currently out on track for the GT3s. But here we got Chris Hughes' team of Valkyrie here, the 222 Ferrari. Ferrari's got a popular car actually. We normally see that. It's got a good amount of pace in this car. So we are being told as well, GT3s are indeed finishing up. So this will be their last lap, and then they will be pulling back into the pits. GT4s are out on track as well, as you can see on the timing tower on the left-hand side. You can see not a lot of them are in the pits. And picture by picture as well, we can see bottom right corner of your screen, that is the GT4s going out on track now. But what is Chris going to do for the 222? He's currently 1.8 seconds back in P16. What is it going to be for his final lap? Is he going to make an improvement? And I just getting the time coming through now. I don't believe he does. No, yeah. So stays in P16. But yes, moving attention onto the GT4s now. Bit of a difference here, isn't it? You've got to think these cars much more heavily based on the road cars. Much more heavily based on the road cars. GT3s are properly stripped out. Chassis different. Everything. So much is different on the GT3s. These cars much more relatable to their road-going cousins. And I feel that provides a different driving experience as well as a different racing experience. Everything happens a little bit slower, wouldn't you say, Connall?
Yeah, if you spend a lot of time with a GT4 and then go back to the GT3, you really get the sensation of speed with the GT3, don't you? I mean, there's a lot more understeer with these GT4s, and of course less power, but it creates a challenge in itself. You know, I think with the increased lack of power, I think it means you have to be a lot more consistent, a lot more precise, and a lot smoother. So it does create an extra bit of challenge for the drivers, and yeah, I mean, I don't think we've had a GT4 race here in the SimGrid that hasn't been an absolute belter. So it's going to be tough to really separate and watch between the GT3 and GT4s. We're going to have about split screen by about 5 split screen to watch everything that's going on. But I've just noticed actually Mr. Super Saturday himself, Marcel Fusi, is in the GT4 category. It's great to see Marcel. Big shout out to him, because he is what I would say a madman. I've seen so many Super Saturdays. I've raced in a few myself, and every single time I've either been out on track or have seen the broadcast, Marcel Fusi is in a Super Saturday race. There is no better man for the job in a Super Saturday race than that man.
Very, very true. I think all of the I've done a few commentaries now with the SimGrid, and yeah, he is always there, and he is always up the field as well. This thing, Marcel Fusi is a very, very quick driver. I've not seen him race in a GT4 car though, so this will be an interesting experience for me. But I'm sure either way, Marcel Fusi is going to be very, very quick. So keep an eye out for the number 94 Porsche. But currently on your screen is Daniel Kiefer. He is in the number 57 Mercedes AMG, a car I haven't actually driven. I've driven a fair few of the other GT4s, but one of the cars I haven't actually had a chance to drive yet. Apparently it's supposed to be a pretty competitive package, but he will be going through. This is his first flying lap, as you can see, so no times on the board as it stands. But you look at that though, these guys haven't got time on the board, and already over a third of their qualifying has gone. So again, it's not worth jumping back in the pit. It's always worth, as you say, Connall, I think you hit the nail on the head. It's worth just staying out and taking the extra fuel. But we're just going through down the final complex of corners. What is it going to be? Jumps over the curb. You can be a little bit more aggressive with the curb in the GT4 cars as well. Everything's a little bit more supple. But let us go through. What is Daniel Kiefer going to do for his first flying lap? He goes with a 1:53.208. Now, I'm not 100% sure if that is a competitive time or not. We're going to see in a few moments because we've got a couple more people coming through now. That is Radoslav Makuch. He's just gone with a 1:53.619. And this is where, again, look how much curb they're using as well. Running right over to the other track, going through into turn 1, trying to keep as much momentum as they can as they run through turns 1, 2, and 3. Interesting, a Ginetta. I haven't actually seen Ginetta. I think this may be the one and only Jetta currently on the grid, driven by, that is Marcus van Ville at the moment, the number 172. Again, a car I haven't actually driven, but I've heard good things about it. What is going to be the time on the board? It is going to be a 1:55.080. I suppose as well, we're looking at this from a perspective of, I know this is qualifying, there's only 10 minutes. Now, to be fair, Connall, another question for you is, what would you be focusing on more? I know what I'd be focusing on if it was, as it's an endurance race, and I'd be focusing more on the actual race itself and getting comfortable in a racing scenario. Qualifying does matter, obviously, naturally, to a certain extent, but it's a long way to go when that green flag drops.
Yeah, I mean, you've seen races where you can look back on and go, you know what, I actually lost this race, or I lost the potential to fight at the front because of my qualifying. So of course qualifying is important. Unfortunately, like, if you want to ask personally what would I be focusing on, I'd be focusing on the race solely because I, both in real life and in the sim, I am a woeful qualifier. I don't know what it is about one lap, but I am hideous over the course of one lap. But yeah, I think for these guys, GT3 will be more important for qualifying. I think the GT4s will be a lot more bunched up. GT3s, I think the best would be at the front, and you can reach I was going to say back markers, but I suppose the other class first, the slower class, you can reach them, and then that's when you dictate when it is that you're going to make the move. Whereas, you know, if you're a couple of cars behind and the two guys in front of you make the pass in the GT4s, you sort of start to feel that pressure and start to feel obliged to go through to try and stick with the group that you're battling with. So I think cleaner in the GT3s will be more important in the early stages, at least, than in comparison to the GT4.
Yeah, it did. I think, you again hit the nail on the head there. It's you've got to weigh the pros and cons with everything, especially when it's coming to endurance racing. Jordan Soans, he's just gone through. He is currently with a 120. A 120. It's definitely on the 120. But that was Soans. He's gone through. Just have a look at the timing screens here. So with 1:54.291. Guillermo Exposito from Team Colacao in the number 64 Porsche. Again, a very competitive car. The Porsche is always there or thereabouts with the GT4 category. And again, the actual the GT4 is currently leading this GT4 category. That is the number 137 of Radoslav Makuch with a 1:53.085. So still leading. Where is Marcel Fusey? He is at the moment fifth. He's at P5. He's only about, this is the thing that he's only about 7 tenths behind. Okay, so this again, we haven't got very long left, 2.5 minutes. So it'll be 1, possibly 2 flying laps, depending on where everyone is out on track. But we're going to be then coming to these closing stages of qualifying for the main event and the main endurance race. I'm very excited. I'm very, very excited indeed. My first time commentating at Catalonia as well. It's a great track. I really enjoy driving it, and I'm sure as well everyone enjoys driving it just as much in the sim as well. That was Jordan Swans again going a little bit sideways going through turn 12. I've noticed that as well. We saw that with the GT3 cars and the GT4 cars as well, similarly. So again, just talking about this as well there, Connall, that we've got to make sure that these drivers are really quite cautious. They've got to make sure they're nice and tentative on the throttle, because otherwise, again, it can really go wrong very, very quickly, and whatever you gained at the start of the lap, you'll lose it all within 1 to 2 corners.
Yeah, especially when you have a track like this where you do start to pick up heat. You generate a lot more heat in the first sector than you do in the final sector, and that can mean when you're trying to get on the power sort of halfway around the lap, your tires are overheated, they get a little bit greasy, and you start stepping out, and it just kills your drive. But that's why I think it's a track that F1 go to so often, and that's why I think it's almost a driver's favourite, because it is that big challenge. around the entire course of the lap. But we see the BMW GT4 here for the first time. I believe again is the only GT4 out on track, or excuse me, the only BMW GT4 out on track. I hope nobody is out on the BMW in GT3 because it doesn't exactly have the best performance. But here we have the GT4 only leaderboard, so you can see here that the number 69, the Maserati, is on pole. Now that is something I did not expect to see. We seen the entry list earlier, and we seen the Maserati out, and I thought that was a bit of a bold move, actually, because of course the Maserati with its lack of traction control would be a bit of an issue, especially if it was raining. But it's not raining, it's fortunately enough. It's actually a great day, 27 degrees at 6 in the evening in game time, so that's just about perfect. But we can see a second cover in the top 10. It's exactly what we want, Dan, isn't it?
Exactly, and we know that the field, the strength of field, the drivers that we have here, that's going to extend very much into the race. It's going to be so close indeed. David Kiefer here, apparently we've been told he's 2/10 up on his time at the moment. He's currently in P3. If he sticks, if he doesn't gain any more time, then he will be on pole by about half a tenth. But apparently we've been told as well that he is gaining yet even more time, so he's got to make sure that he keeps it all in check for these final complex of corners he goes through. The qualifying is just ticked over to the end, so anyone that crosses the line now, that is it, done and dusted. But all eyes at the moment are on Mr. Kiefer. How is he going to do? Apparently he's half a second up. He's got to keep it in check for these last few corners. Keep it all together, David. Don't make any mistakes. Jump over the curb just enough, but not too much. He does jump over the curb a little bit. So he's just, unfortunately as well, we just looked and it looked like it was a bit of a stretch, but he has invalidated that lap, which is a big shame, but he does have the pace and he knows that. That's the more important thing. Yes, P3 is still a very good position indeed, but all importantly, he knows he's got potentially 0.4 of a second on Lucas Zacola, who at the moment has put it on pole, which we didn't even notice through there. So it's so close indeed. But currently on your screen, as you can see, the racing qualifying, there is your official qualifying results for the event, and that is just, do you know what, it's probably made it even more exciting because Daniel Kiefer couldn't actually improve. We know that he's got that time in the tank, but he's got to get past Zacola and he's got to get past Makuch as well. So this is going to be a very interesting race in the GT4s to start with.
Yeah, I'm very intrigued by that. Very impressed, first of all, with the Maserati on pole position. They're having an absolutely phenomenal drive. But yeah, unfortunately for the America, it's what I was saying earlier. You can't afford to be greedy in that final sector. You can see him just trying to get it. He was getting a little bit excited that he was, at least half a second up, and it was a guaranteed pole position if he just held it. And then unfortunately tried to get another little bit of time, which of course any racer in qualifying does, and then just messed it up on those horrible high curbs that you can hit, and you just send your car absolutely flying and straight lining it. And we've seen him invalidate his lap. But again, as you said, Dan, you pointed out, it is just a psychological, okay, we have that time in the bag, we're P3, we're not last, we can see clear air just in front of us, just a row in front of us, we're in a good shape here.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, 100%. These, I think as well, you'll probably find, bear in mind, I have two drivers as well, so you could have potentially that, naturally you would think that the faster of the two drivers could be, that would be taking it on pole, but not necessarily the case. Someone could be doing, again, a slightly different strategy, so it'll be interesting to see how that goes as well. A few more minutes, though, before we get underway for qualifying, before the main race goes. In fact, I believe the session will be starting in a few moments time. So lots of different challenges here. I think what we're going to, well, to be fair, we need to make sure that first off everyone gets through the first couple of laps cleanly. Everyone needs to establish their positions as well. Now, you'd normally have, I don't know about yourself, Connor, what your tactics would be at the start of a race. I'd always want to err on the side of caution. You can be a little bit aggressive if you want to. At the same time, though, with an event such as this and how long it is, I don't really think it's worth it. I almost never think it's worth it for an endurance race. If you lose two positions, you lose two positions. But as long as you've got the pace and you've got the confidence, in theory, ultimately you should get that time back. But then again, with an additional driver, you don't know necessarily what the pace of the other teammate is. So, there's so many ways to look at it. There's so many different ways to look at it.
Yeah, I mean, that is the the dynamic and the confusing question no one will ever get. I mean, you have a race plan in your head, and then pretty much as soon as you get to turn 1, it goes completely out the window. 99% of the time is always the case. But yeah, I think actually you're spot on in that should be the approach. But will that be the approach? I doubt it, because as soon as these guys get off the line, their pride and their adrenaline will be flowing, and as soon as they go in and turn 1, they'll be defending their positions and trying to start making ground.
Absolutely. Well, the grid, we're going to do a quick rundown before we get underway. So that is, on pole position, we've actually got VRM Racing, number 89, driven by Nipam Shah. He's going to be starting the race. In P2, we've got the number 227 of Team Fleury from Gianluca Bellucci. In P3, the number 808 Aston Martin Alpha Course, driven by, going to be starting, that is Alistair Leckie. Then P4, that is the number 173 McLaren Roadrunner Racing. That's Udit Sen that's going to be starting on that car. The number 958 Ferrari will be starting, will be driven by the start of the race. I just have a look through the numbers now. So yes, the 958 will be driven. That's Mixed Wheels 958. That is by Brad Smoke. So he is starting. Actually, sorry, I'm looking forward. Apologies, I'm actually looking through a bit further down the grid. So that was 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, if you want, so 13th. 14th, number 91, that is BS Kit Motorsports, driven by, that'll be Charlie Kent, that's starting. And then with the number 52, Lamborghini, that is driven. That's Scania Endurance Motorsport, Federico Rossano, that's going to be starting. The 222, Ferrari, that is Team Valkyrie, driven by Chris Gooch, who will be starting this event. And then the number 120 Bentley. We've got a Bentley on the grid as well. I didn't see that actually in qualifying, but we do indeed have a Bentley. The number 20 TFLG Racing, driven by Lewis Storm. What a last name, Storm. Great name. And then number 51 P18. That is the Lexus of Manco's team, driven by that is Christian Abad Sola, that's going to be starting in the Lexus. Number 120, the number 69, that is Lucas Zacola. He will be starting on pole position for the Maserati in the GT4s. P2 will be the number 137 Porsche Random Racing, driven by Radoslav Makuch, who's going to be starting that. Daniel Kiefer in P3. Unfortunately, he was half a second up. Couldn't quite make it start, though, on couldn't quite make the lap stick on his final lap, but he knows he's got pace. 3-1-2, that's the Alpine. We've got an Alpine, in P4. That is driven by DJ Racing. That's driven by Jan Nicholas Ebrick. That's going to be starting the number 31 car in P5. That is Nicolay. That's going to be starting in the BMW. Number 23 Aston Martin. Swan is going to be starting. Number 94 Porsche. 3 Porsches actually in a row. We've got Fusey, Rab, and Exposito that are going to be starting their respective positions. Number 11 Aston Martin will be driven by Kutnik starting off. 172 Ginetta will be driven by, that's Roadrunner Racing number 172. That'll be driven by Tom. Number 719 McLaren, the 570S GT4, the only McLaren in the GT4 class on the grid, that will be driven by Mulhoff. And then going through, the person will be starting as well. The number 31, Ivan Hernandez, will be starting in the Audi GT4 car as well. Not too long to go then, a few more seconds, and then we'll be getting underway. Predictions at all, Con? Have you got any predictions at all? I certainly haven't. There's too many things that can happen, too many things that can go on. I really have absolutely no idea.
Oh, no, I'm going to sit in the fence here. I'm not going to stick my neck out and make a prediction here, because as you say, when you have multi-class racing, the race really isn't decided until the very last lap, because you can get caught up in a bit of traffic, you can get caught up in anything, and that will just be a complete game changer. But yeah, for sure, the only thing I can predict is that we're going to have a cracker.
We are indeed, absolutely. But we've got a short formation lap, so drivers are already starting to come round the last corner. That is Felix Rupert, the starting pole position, the number 71 Audi. When is he going to go, and when we'll be getting underway for this 2-hour Super Saturday event held here by the SimGrid? Where does it go? We have just been gone green, and that is it. Already we can see at the back there, potentially 3, even 4 wide going through, but Felix Rupert, he's got a very, very good start. Look at that, the gap he's already got. They're going to go 3 wide. The 2 McLarens side by side, potentially going down into turn 1. It was actually going to be 3 wide, I thought, for a brief moment there, but Rupert does take the lead. The McLaren still side by side, but I believe that is Willimot that does indeed take the position. GT3s as well that go through all simply and pretty well. Lucas Zakola, he's actually dropped a position, I think, going through to the Porsche at the very, very start of the race. So, but look at Felix Rupert. He has just disappeared at this moment in time. He's already pulled about half a second of a gap. 7/10 already he's pulled. But meanwhile, yeah, back down into the GT4 category. No, apologies, that is indeed. So Lucas Sokola, he's still leading in the GT4 categories. It's getting very, very close behind, though. Again, you can see a little bit of tussling already. But all drivers managed to get through. We had someone go off there. Couldn't quite see who that was. But again, they're going to go potentially 3 wide coming down into turn 7. That's going to be a brave move for all of these guys if they're just starting out. But I think at the moment, indeed, Lucas Sokola, still, he's not got the gap as well from a coach that I think he wanted to. Someone's taken out one of the boards. He's playing dirty tactics already, but going to the hairpin for the first time. What is going to be? Who's going to be? That is Federico Rosano that's going to try and go up the inside of the Lexus. Doesn't quite make it stick though, so he maintains his position of P70 at the moment, but he's getting now pressured by that Gonzalez on the outside of turn 12. Manages to just keep it in check, but now he's lost a position. Then we've now got Storm in the Bentley, the number 120, that's going to have a bit of a look up the inside. Doesn't quite make the move stick either, though. So, everyone, realistically, at the moment, Connall has got through. I'm going to, hopefully not commentators curse here, but everyone seems to have got through. No, I'm not going to finish that sentence, but you know what I was going to say. Yeah, that's actually a really, really good start there, but mainly as well, Rupert, 1.3 seconds already on the lead as the GT3s.
Yeah, well, he got the absolute perfect start. I think he gained even a couple of tenths just off the line. As we see, I was getting worried for some contact there as soon as you said, Dan, about the clean first lap. I thought lap 2 would be where the chaos begins. We've seen a little bit of bumping and boring there further back. It was the BMW that was bumped onto the gravel, but I think it only dipped a wheel or 2 into the gravel and got going again, so I don't think he lost too much time. Zakola is still in the lead in that Maserati, opening up a little bit of a gap in GT4. You can see the gap there, 7/10 already, and that is seriously impressive again from the Maserati. But we see 2 Audis followed by 2 McLarens. It's like Noah's Ark of on 2x2. But yeah, the Audi, of course, was the car choice for the qualification for the Sprint Cup Season 3 around Barcelona. So a couple of drivers might have been attempting to qualify for that and have got experience around here. But as we see, David Kiefer now, he has lost touch just a little bit to Erbic, Makic and Segola. And we've seen, of course, as we've got the Lexus spun, and that is a terrible spot to be spun round, and we've seen the consequences of that. That is a big hit. That is the Lexus, and I can't see who the other driver was. It was Jordan Sones as well, and that's an absolute disaster for one of the Aston Martin GT4s.
Yeah, not good indeed. But yeah, it raises the question, though, to be fair, yellow flags were waved, and yellow flags would have been waved there for quite a while. So hopefully we're, I mean, I'm hoping everyone was adhering to the yellows, but at the same time, not 100% sure until we potentially see a replay. But this is going to be that's Alessio Ciani, and that is going to be battling with Sen as well up the inside. That was a carbon copy of what the move potentially was going to happen. Bit more contact again, and they both managed to get and go. But unfortunately, Alessio Ciani, he has lost out. He's potentially going to lose another position to who's that coming through now on the outside. That's potentially going to be Kraus, I think, as well. You've got Kraus and also the Lamborghini of Rosano as well. So, but they're having a bit of a battle. That's not actually a Lamborghini. I can't tell my cars apart. That's a Ferrari behind. So actually, that'd be Chris Gooch as well. So that's the car that I was actually in. The Lamborghini is just behind of Rosano. But Gianni does manage to keep it all in check. So an interesting start to the race. To be fair, it was one of the things, as you say, Connall. Everyone's starting to get they're starting to find their feet. The confidence is starting to build up a little bit here, and they're really starting to make a couple of moves. They're starting to feel, as tire pressures come up, their brake temperature, everything sort of starts to warm up. They're trying to make a bit more moves. That's going to be one move as well. That's going to be Kraus up the inside of Gianni. Textbook move, but a cutback potentially for Gianni. Doesn't quite make it stick though, but these guys, it's a 2-hour race, everyone. You've got to take it nice and easy. But I think these guys they want track position. They're not too fussed about the endurance race. They're going to worry about that later when the time comes. They want track position at this moment in time, don't they, Connall?
Yeah, we've seen many times that endurance races are basically just longer sprint races for these drivers. It's always as aggressive. Gianni was a little bit naughty there, I must say, in turn 1 a lap ago, coming across while I believe it was the Audi of Christ that was trying to get past. Coming across braking there. Now it's interesting that Gianni has jumped into the car when it was Bellucci qualifying, so a little bit of a strategy change there. Most of the GT3s that I can see did actually participate in qualifying, so you would expect their fastest, at least hot lap driver, is doing the first stint. Hopefully, their plan would be, I believe, to try and create some distance and create some clean air for the second driver. But when you get guys like Kraus and Gianni and Gooch all hovering around each other, it's very hard to get some clean air. But the McLaren's now almost working in tandem. It's good to see that, actually, a little bit of racecraft here. You haven't seen the 500 DBL really make some moves or put the 316 McLaren under a lot of pressure at the minute, because he's seen that they were catching off the number 100 Audi. And there's nothing more frustrating than when you're catching a car in front and you have the car behind start diving up the inside, making block passes and ruining your lap, when really you should be like a cycle team where you're working together in a peloton to try and catch the group ahead. And yeah, it's great to see the McLaren straight up the inside. Ruoff, of course, dipped the toe in the gravel, but he has the inside line. We're going to see a replay. Now this is, of course, the Lexus incident, and it is the Lamborghini that we've seen get a little bit aggressive. Oh, and the Bentley hits him as well. That's a bit of a disaster. He's on the green. You can see him try and rejoin, but unfortunately there's some GT4s coming around. Jordan Sona is unsighted, as just behind 2 cars, could not see exactly where the car was. And then as soon as those cars parted, there was a big load of Lexus in his face and he had nowhere to go.
I think, to be fair, if any of the there was a bit tussling there. So we've said about the McLarens working together. Might be working together a little bit less now, because as well you've got Dubiel in. That's Polano in the Audi, the number 86. Audi's going to have a look up the inside going into turn 4. Has he made the move? I think he has done it. The McLaren has nowhere to go. So that is Dubiel. He doesn't have anywhere to go, so he had to concede the position. So that is Polano for the number 86 Audi that does take the position. That is the VIG Project Strato Purple, the Audi R8 LMS Evo car that now worked its way up into P4. So he's done one McLaren. He's now got to try and catch up and pass the other one. But yeah, as you were saying, that I mean, of all the cars you don't necessarily want, one of the biggest cars that you can have currently on the GT3 roster. Yeah, it was a shame. I think, to be fair, yeah, yellow flags again would have been waved, so a bit more caution should have been taken. But at the same time, though, either way, yes, it was a little bit unsighted. So a big shame for both parties there. You can see as well, that is Grant Widemont that's flashing furiously at the back of Ruoff's Audi. He wants to get past, but at the moment he can't quite make a move. I wonder again if he's playing this. I know, well, actually, to be fair, now I'm going to almost answer myself. He goes a little bit wide, though. That's going to compromise him. So he's lost a little bit of time there. I think this is the thing as well to also mention, Connall, is any drivers here that make a small mistake, because again of how close the grid is. I say how close the grid is, apart from Rupert, number 71, who has currently got a 4.3 second lead on the GT3 field. But any small little mistake can cost you so heavily in a strength of field in a grid such as this.
Yeah, absolutely, and it goes back to the point of getting frustrated when someone makes a block pass on you, because especially in some of these corners, you think of T5, T6, T7 around there especially, you can lose a lot of time when you're trying to get on the power. You're going uphill and you get dragged wide and just kills all your momentum, and you can go too wide into a corner. There's really, when you go offline at Barcelona, you find yourself struggling and losing a lot of time. But you can see here actually on pit wall, Rupert last time around 43.6 He's out in clean air. He's all good. I believe now Ruoff is starting to hold up Willemot. In saying that, Willemot is getting sideways behind him, so maybe struggling a little bit, getting a little bit frustrated, getting a little bit angsty on the throttle to try and get the run on Ruoff and actually compromising himself. But here he goes. He looks a little bit racy here into the hairpin, thinks better of it. He is not close enough. As you see, one of the Porsches, that's Dominic, the number 47, looking up the inside of Dubel, who's lost positions, and he's gone down to 5th because the Audi, the number 86 Audi, pulled off that beautiful maneuver we seen earlier. But yeah, Wilmot looks as though he's starting to get a little bit frustrated here. But meanwhile, we have Sekola opening up a 2.8 second gap to Erbich in second in GT4. That's phenomenal stuff. There is the leader just going through, and now we can see for the battle for third is just 6 cars, just as you do. 6 car battle for the third position. And we're down to 5. We're down to 5. Never mind. I'm not going to speak about battles anymore.
I think, to be fair, but again, that looked to be again, that was Kutnik, I think, that just get a little bit too early on the power coming out of turn 5. Again, go down here, you've got a bit of off camber there as well. Lots of things going on. It's a very complex corner as well with the elevation changes. So didn't lose too much time though, no positions lost. But we obviously, a bit of side-by-side action there. Currently on board with Radoslav Makuch that has got Kiefer all in his mirrors of that Mercedes. He wants to make the move. He's got the pace. We saw that in qualifying. But at the moment, he can't quite hook this lap together. I wonder again, bit of like conservation, self-preservation again kicking there. If they start battling, he might be losing a bit too much time here. So potentially we'll see how this develops as well. Because you think you've got Makuch, he is in a pretty precarious position because he's got someone ahead and behind. So has Kiefer as well. So realistically, it's pretty much again, it's anyone's game. It's we're only 10 minutes into this 2-hour endurance race, so we've got a lot going on. Meanwhile, the bottom right hand corner of your screen, we've got the big GT3 battle here. This is a 5-way or a 4-way battle now, but pretty much will soon be a 5-way battle with the Porsche. That is Dominiak, the number 47, who's going to get on the back of this train as well. So a 5-car battle for P2. And at the moment, Ruoff, the number 100 Audi Evo, is holding, or as I say, holding up, but he is leading this train here. I don't think he's holding anyone up because he's got pace and he's actually pulled a little bit of a gap. So yeah, again, you can see Willemot, the frustration in the driving to a certain degree. Everything's opened up a little bit. This is going to be, I can imagine, even with the pit stops when they come in, that's going to shuffle the grid a little bit. But even so, this is going to be the next hour and 47 minutes of this race. But looking back at the GT4s, we've now got Machuch. He's going to try and make a move on. That is Marcel Fusey, who has now made some positions up. So Marcel Fusey, didn't even notice, but he is really storming ahead. And he is now, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong there, Colin, he is in P3 in class. So there's the pace that we know of Marcel Fusey. I was expecting to be a little bit quicker in qualifying, but he's decided that he wants to make the position up in the race as well to make things a little bit more interesting for him.
Yeah, if you're looking, as we see now, Kiefer is making a position as well, so he looks a little bit racy after his mistake earlier on. But if you're looking at the bottom right of the screen there, when the GT3 battle was on the main screen, Fusey and Makuch were side by side for 3 whole corners around turn 3, 4 and 5, and they were not giving each other an inch. It was absolutely phenomenal stuff. And as you can see, Marcel Fusey got the upper hand. Now it'll be very interesting because while these guys have been battling, Erbich has now split them and he's ran away in second place. Of course, we know the leader, Sekola, in the 69 Maserati. He is away by about 3 seconds across the line. Fusey now has a 2.3 second gap to bridge. And then also, in saying that, not only does he have to bridge this gap, but he has to keep Makuch from actually coming up the inside of the game and making pressures. We see these guys getting very racy. We've got a Mercedes, we've got a Porsche, and we have a BMW. It's a perfect mix here, perfect storm. Gotta say, these 3 cars in this battle, very different characteristics, so I think they'll be faster in certain parts and slower in other parts than their rivals.
Yes, absolutely. There's lots of things going on. Again, you've got different cars promote different styles of driving, and also they're better in areas, worse in other areas, as you say. But yeah, the gap has been split up a little bit, but that's not meaning to say that we're not going to see that gap condense again. If any of these drivers start racing, especially with the 2 Porsches up ahead, that's Fusey and Makuch, then we're going to see those times, and we're going to see that gap come right back down, and the 2-way battle for P3 will very quickly become a 5-way battle yet again. Just a bit of housekeeping though on the stream as well. Please let us know who you're supporting. We've had a couple of you saying who they're supporting, but I want to hear everyone else as well. So let us know in the comments. Make sure as well, if you haven't already, make sure you do subscribe to the SimGrid YouTube channel to keep up with all of the other live streams as well. And also, if you haven't already, please leave this stream a like as well. It helps the stream out massively. So if you haven't already, hit that like button. That would be absolutely fantastic. But yes, David Kiefer, he is making some moves as well. He's also catching up. He's pulling a little bit on Exposito. He's got a couple of tenths in hand, not too much, but enough that he hasn't really got to worry about them this moment in time. The next person in his sights is Makuch, and like I said, this is, I think, we're now starting to see the pace come through now, a little bit of Kiefer, so we're going to see how that develops as we move forward. But Guillermo Exposito, he is a bit of no man's land at the moment. He hasn't really got to worry about too much of Apostol behind him, and he hasn't got to worry too much about Kiefer in front of him, so he's a little bit of, like I say, a bit of no man's land at the moment. Although, as I say that, BMW is very, very quick in a straight line. I just noticed that. The closing speed that Apostol had on Exposito was pretty, well, it was very, very quick indeed. I wasn't actually expecting the BMW to be catching up that fast.
Yeah, and I'm just actually looking at GT4 times that are coming across line. Marcel Fuzi, the only guy to match the leader's pace, 53.5 and a 53.5 for both Sakola and Fuzi. Urbich actually in second did a 54.2. So yeah, 8 tenths taken out on that last lap from Marcel Fuzi on Urbich. So he will be catching him within the next few laps, and he has officially gapped the group behind, which Makuch has actually dropped down into Kiefer and that Porsche and BMW battle. So Fuzi is the guy to watch. He is on the move.
He is indeed, absolutely. Meanwhile as well, Grant Wilmot, he still can't find a way past. I'm actually thinking, though, maybe tactics now playing involved. He's just relinquished the fact he may not be able to get past them in this particular stint. So possibly what he's doing is just sitting back and just holding his ground at the moment, trying to save a bit of fuel as well. It's a very, very key thing. I normally talk about fuel saving quite a lot. I like fuel saving. I think it does benefit quite heavily, and I'm sure some of these drivers will be doing it as well. So potentially that is what Grant Wilmot is doing, again, playing the long game here. We've also actually you saw the start of this when we switched to this camera angle here. We've just we just saw the Ginetta GT4, so we're already starting to lap the GT4 battle, and that's really going to be pushing. These drivers to actually think about everything a little bit more. You know, they've got to try and position the car. They've got to try and position where everything's going and what's happening, and they've got to do this. Bear in mind, not only are they making sure they don't lose too much time, but they're also racing as well. You think you've got Willemot and Ruoff. These guys are really, really close. So it's almost, if the Audi gets past, so from Willemot's perspective, and Connor, you'll probably agree with me on this, if the Audi gets past, I think realistically, the McLaren has to go past as well as he tries to have a bit of a look on the inside going into turn 1.
Yeah, you can see now that Willemot, he's been stuck behind Ruoff about 5 or 6 laps now, and he hasn't found a way through, so that isn't really an indicator that he's being held up too badly. And I think both of them just happen to be running realistically on the same pace, because they're also gapping now Dubuel, who's got up the inside. We've got the first penalty of the race as a 5-second time penalty for the 173 McLaren. That is a GT3, so we've got the first time penalty that was issued by the stewards, and yeah, I think we should see a little bit more now. I think we will see some more penalties coming through, because we are now officially getting through the GT4 field. The GT3 guys getting up the inside, and you can see how busy it is. The GT4s are actually doing a good job of getting out of the way. Now, of course, they don't have to get out of the way. It's not like your back marker in Formula 1 where you have to dive out of the way to let the lapping cars through. But yeah, I think that's a little bit of the self-preservation you talked about earlier, Dan.
Absolutely. Well, to be fair, look at that Grant Willemot. He made the move. This is, again, he utilised the GT4 car, potentially actually, whether Ruoff got a little bit held up by one of the GT4s, a bit upset on the balance of where his car was, but Willemot didn't need a second invitation. And look at that as well, up the inside. This is all Contineering up as well. You've got 4 GT3 cars almost becoming 1 GT3 car then, but they managed to avoid incidents as well. And that is on one of the Aston Martin GT4 cars. This is the issue that people have got to, you've got to try and manage it. But unfortunately, in that scenario there, nothing could happen. Now coming on board with Adam Dubiel, he's got an Audi in front and Audi behind. So what is he going to do? He's going to try and make a move up the inside, going into turn 1. The McLaren's late on the brakes, but the Audi is later. Oh my goodness, how these guys, they're still driving around. This is about as much space as they want to give. But Adam Dubiel, what a move through there. So Rulf has gone from, he's lost 3 positions, might even lose another one to the Porsche, driven by the number 47 Dominiac at the moment. Is it going to be another bit of a back marker there as they go through? That's number 57 GT4 car of DK Racing. And it's Daniel Kiefer as well, so he's getting caught up in the mix as well. I mean, as you say, Connall, he doesn't really have to give the position. He doesn't have to concede at all. He needs to just really stay on his racing line. But at the same time, he's still got to be, to a certain extent, cautious of these guys are battling as well. At the moment, Daniel Kiefer, he's not really having that much of a battle. He's pretty much, he's a bit more, I say, on his lonesome. I'm actually going to correct myself. He's got an Aston Martin behind him now. But again, more GT3 cars. This is so close. Sometimes actually get a little bit confusing. Oh my goodness, who was that as well? That may have been Willemot, I think, that had to make a last-minute dive out on the inside. But this is where it becomes really heated, because you don't know what's going on the corner after corner. Because you can have a good rough idea and a rough estimate of when you're catching up GT4s, but as well, Connor, you don't necessarily really know 100% what's going to happen.
Yeah, I'm glad I had my mic muted there, because I was just laughing away when we got that shot down the back straight, because I was disoriented looking at it, and I'm not driving, you know, so I can't imagine how bad these drivers are getting disoriented. You've seen Yannick Ruoff actually going onto the grass to make a pass around the outside, going up into turn 7, so that is, yeah, it can make or break a race. It really can. You know, you're struggling like Grant Willemot. Actually, we just seen, of course. Look at the gap he has now over Ruoff. He has been stuck behind him for 5 or 6 laps. Oh, he's been spun. Willemot's been spun by one of the Audis. Now, is that a GT4 Audi? Is that a GT3? I believe it's the GT3 Audi Polano. Is it? Oh, but all we know is that Willemot has been spun, and that is an absolute disaster. And you can find Yannick Ruoff, who was really in the mud a little bit there, losing positions and bleeding positions. He's found himself, hello, I'm back up into the top 4.
Well, to be fair, if there's one way to do it, then that's definitely capitalising on an opportunity. So yeah, it's not ideal, but yeah, at the same time, it's a shame. It's a shame. So you've got Willemot that's just had all of that. He spent however long. He spent the first 25 minutes of this race sitting behind Ruoff, and now he's got to try and make all of that petition and all those time up all over again. Sorry, De Beer, we've just been told as well. Apologies, we've just been told that I've just been corrected and say it was De Beer actually that lost that time. So again, 25 minutes, and then that early, still quite early in the race.
Yeah, and we're going to see stints coming to an end very shortly too. So, yeah, I think any damage right now will have to be sorted in the scheduled pit stop. You know, I think they're just going to have to limp home for the next few laps. But yeah, unfortunately for Dubil, Willemot was the guy that got through, and now you can see actually Willemot has an 8-second gap over 3rd place. So, for being stuck behind for quite some time, he has pulled a lot of. Now here it is. Here's the incident. Dubil is on the right. He is in the McLaren, and yeah, it's just 2 into 1 does not go. And that the first 2 corners are tricky, of course, because you're changing direction, you're side by side. But yeah, I mean, we're going to see the stewards make a decision. We will keep you posted on what they say, as we see Ruoff now actually getting past the current GT4 leader. The beautiful Maserati doing a stellar job, just leading away. You can see him, he's not in an immediate battle there. He's letting people through whenever he can without losing too much time. I think that is the perfect way to drive this, because we will see some of his competitors start to get held up. Oh, as we big contact, and that is, I believe, the 227 or the 222 Ferrari. Is that Chris Gooch that was caught up in that incident? That was a big hit, and it looked as though one of the cars just came straight across him. He had nowhere really to go. As we have, it was Smoke who already has a drive-through penalty, so that is not a great afternoon. He's just been caught up in a big incident, and now he has a drive-through penalty.
Drive-through penalty to car 958 for avoidable contact.
And there we go. So we've had an official announcement from director Mr. Michael Hamlet as well, announcing on the stream. We've got the live penalties coming through as well. So thank you very much for that, Michael, keeping us in the loop as always. Fantastic stuff indeed. Gives everyone an element of, again, that's like live, really what's happening. And you can tell the work that goes on behind the scenes through these races. Absolutely fantastic. So very big thanks to Michael Hamlet for keeping us involved. But Alistair Leckie, the number 808 Aston, he was actually getting pressured a little bit from Polano. And as he jumps in the pits, this could very well be the first of the stops we've seen. So I think as well, yes, Alistair Leckie is the first person to make that jump. So are we going to see people respond to him? It's quite early in this stint, actually. 25 minutes in. These guys do have a little bit more time on their hands if they wish. We're just coming up with a replay now. And this is indeed the number 958. This is Smoke. What is going to happen here? Again, it's just two cars not going into one. Oh, yes, the number 5. Absolutely blindsided. That was Team Gonza. Ivan Hernandez and Hugo Gonzalez. That unfortunately, I think just a bit blindsided by the fact that the 958 was actually going around the outside of the Porsche. And this is the other thing as well, isn't it? This is the tricky thing when overtaking GT4s and when multi-class. You've just got to be so much and so on the ball that a small little slip up, a small lapse of concentration, and something like that happens.
Yeah, I think normally we see, you see incidents that are, that's 50-50. But I think looking at that replay, it's safe to say that a penalty will be coming his way for the number 5 Audi. But it's very unfortunate, of course, for Smoke, because he already has a drive-through penalty as it is, and then he was sent into the shadow realm. So, as we see Kevin Price actually go onto the grass on a straight, which is an interesting line. Not exactly the preferred racing line, picking up a little bit of grass. But he should be fine. He's done actually a great job at 139, but he's getting caught a little bit by the resurgent Polano, who of course we've seen caught up with the incident with Dubel, and Nippon Shah here in the 89 top Lamborghini at the minute. And he's just very, very close to the back of Polano. That made me jump out of my chair. But Nippon Shah is doing a great job. So we should at some point get a replay of the start. It was a very clean start. We've seen a lot more incidents, shall we say, near the end of the stint. And that could just be a little bit of driver fatigue or tyre wear playing a little bit of a factor. When you feel like you're getting to the end of your stint, you start to just shut off a little bit. It's very hard to stay focused for the entirety of the stint, and especially when you're in a battle like this, in a multi-class battle, you can find yourself just making those few slip-ups.
Indeed. Well, so there's one slip up potentially. Nippon Shah, he's actually going to make the move up the inside going into turn 4. He actually made it on the exit of turn 3. So he's got past Polano, the number 86 Audi, and he's already pulled about 0.2 of a second, so he's really motoring along. Powell Dominiak, he is in the number 47 Porsche, one of the only Porsches in the GT3 categories. One of my personal favourite cars. I do like the Porsche here, doing very, very well at the moment in P5, and he's only half a second off of Ruoff, who again has been holding his own at the moment. Managed to avoid the earlier incident, but look at that behind Dubiel. He is there. He is trying to work his way back as quickly as he can. And if these guys keep battling, he's going to be right on the back. He already is. So that's Dominiak. He's going to go up the inside of Ruff. So he's lost another position. And just going a little bit too aggressive on the throttle. Potentially even lost that on the brakes going in to the all-important turn 10, a very, very tight hairpin. So that has allowed Powell Dominiak to really capitalise on the opportunity and pull a bit of a gap if he can. Porsche's got a good amount of straight line speed, but he's got no one in front of him. He's got no toe, whereas Ruoff and Dubiel both have. So who's going to out-drag everyone here? Another McLaren is very quick in straight line, but so is the Audi. It might be neck and neck. But again, at the moment, like the person that's losing out most of is Dominiak. You see, he tries to cover the inside just a little bit. Probably doesn't need to at this moment in time. I don't think the drivers are close enough. But this is very much a three-way battle now for P4. But if Powell Dominiak can pull away.
Cars 86 are under investigation.
There we go, cars number 5 and 86 under investigation. Thank you very much for that again. So we've got, again, moving forward, we've got another replay here. This is the replay of the start for the GT3 cars. Now, again, it all sort of concertinas up, but at the same time, everyone was nice and respectful. I did think, though, as well, Connor, it was going to go 4 wide, and it was actually at one point 4 wide going into turn 1.
As you do, just a casual Saturday evening going 4 wide down the front straight of Barcelona. But yeah, as you said, it was quite a calm first few corners. I mean, Rupert really just helped his team so much by getting that cracking of a start. Look at the gap he has there. That is just enough to not have to drive defensive for the rest of the lap and just focus on getting some cleaner and getting into your rhythm quite early. And everyone else was sort of driving behind them, having a look in their rearview mirrors, trying to go defensive here and there, and that just sort of breaks their rhythm. They can't get settled into their normal pace as quickly as Rupert could because he had that gap in hand. It wasn't a massive gap, so he still had to do a lot of business in the first few laps to actually make the gap bigger, of course. And look at the gap now, 16 seconds. Rupert is in a class of his own. I believe he is the only GT3 in the 43s. He's just dropped actually his pace. Oh, he's going really slow now, only a 44.1. So I think that's one of the first few laps that he's actually dropped out of the 43s. So yeah, absolutely phenomenal pace. When a 44.1 is your slowest lap and the rest around you are doing 44.5, for example, yeah, that's when you know you're in a strong position.
100%. Yeah, absolutely. But going to the GT4s now, Alpine versus Porsche. So we have here, this is Marcel Fusey, the man, Mr. Super Saturday, the person, number 94, Porsche. He is currently battling, that is the Alpine driven by Ebrich at this moment in time. Going to go on the defence of the Alpine. It hasn't got the legs on the straight, whereas the Porsche, look at the pace that the Porsche has got. He might even get the move done. All that Ebrich needs to do is just keep it on the inside. He knows he's got a good amount of pace on the brakes. He can brake later than Marcel Fusey can. And again, we just see there, perfect placement of the car. I think he did go a little bit too deep, but Marcel Fusey couldn't actually make that move. He couldn't get the cut back as well. So brilliant placement there for Ebrich, but that was a very, very good move indeed. So, a very good sort of battle that's going on between those. That's now transferred to the bottom of your screen. But again, a four-way battle now. That was actually, I believe, apologies, that was a back marker, I believe. I think that was the 222 of Alex Guter that was getting out of the way. So it's battle 3 battle still going. Dominiak, though, he's actually pulled away a little bit, I've just noticed as well. So I wonder if Rudolph and Dubiel, they're having a bit of a battle, and this is allowing Dominiak to just pull away a little bit. Not too much, though, so he's still got to be careful. He's still got to put the laps in. And that is Dubiel that's gone in the pits. So we are starting to see a few more drivers now jump into the pits. So this is the first round of pit stop with some driver changes as well that will be coming in as well. Bear in mind, 3 mandatory driver changes for this particular event. Marcel Fusey, though, up the inside again, going through into turn 10. Can he make it stick this time? Yes, he can. Although, are we going to see Ebrich that's going to have another move? I don't think so. He tried to have a bit of a nosy at the inside of turn 11. But again, there is no match at this moment in time for the mighty Porsche that is very, very quick in the straight line. It's got some good traction as well. And this, I think, as well, the Alpine may not be the best track for somebody here. It does struggle a little bit on these slightly longer straights, doesn't it, Connall?
Yeah, it does, but I think Fusey, the pace was coming. If you look at the lap times, he's been sort of hovering around the same pace as the leader. So he did have a pace advantage over Ebrich, and you can see actually he set the run through the last corner in the final chicane. He really squirted off and focused on getting the drive out, and that helped him so much. Of course, he didn't get the move done. He sort of kissed the rear end of Erbich's car, who defended absolutely brilliantly, but you can see the gap now that Fusey's been released. Already half a lap in, he has opened up at least 3 or 4 tenths here, and that is just a little bit disheartening for Ebrich. I'm sure he was thinking he could hang with Fusey just a little bit, but unfortunately not at the current time. But Michael Hamlet will be here with more penalties for us.
Stop and go 30 for cars 5 and car 23 for speeding in the pit lane.
Oh, one of the worst penalties to get.
I know.
I mean, it's just a disaster. It's so self-inflicted. Of course, you get involved in instance, and you can say, well, he did this or he did that, or we could have done something differently. But a stop-go 30-second penalty is just carelessness, isn't it?
We've all been there. We've all been there, haven't we? And it is just. I've been there more times than I care to mention. But at the same time, yeah, it is a very, very it isn't a great thing, especially as well when you're part of a team. That really doesn't help the situation either. But at the same time, the number 5, Hernandez needs to just get his head down and crack on. Put it past, just move on, and what will be will be. Declan Bowler, he is now in the PP Motorsport Porsche. So number 47, the teammate to Powell Dominiak. So what is the pace going to be? This is the other thing as well with driver swaps. These guys obviously had a bit of driving in testing, I'm sure, and in practice, but they haven't actually driven the car since qualifying began. So track temps at the end, they've all sort of changed a little bit. Track is getting cooler naturally because it is getting later in the day. It's currently 24 degrees track temp. So yeah, this is going to be interesting. How quickly can these guys really switch on? As well, the number 500 McLaren, that is Lukaszek. He is now, he's taken over from, correct me if I'm wrong, he's taken from Adam Dubiel. So again, both these drivers are on now both these teams are on new drivers. So that was, I can't remember what the Aston that was, but that was very, very close indeed. I thought that was going to be a bit of an accident there, but luckily manages to just about avoid running into the back of, that was Seglia, the number 86 Audi. But this is the battle for P11. As we can see on your screen again, I don't think a couple of drivers still have yet to make their pit stops. I think Willemot is one of the last people to make their pit stop. They're in the pits now. And I think apart from that, GT4 drivers, they've got a little bit more time as well. So we can see a couple of drivers still with 3 stops left to go. But as well, this is going to be Daniel Joseph from Roadrunner Racing, the number 173 McLaren, is going to be put under pressure. Is there going to be a move from Seglia? I think there is. That is it. Done and dusted. A good move going through into turn 4.
Stop go 30, car 316, speeding in the pit lane.
Oh, another one. That's Willemot.
Oh, that's an absolute disaster. Grant Willemot, who was second by the end of his stint. He'd done well. He'd done the hard work, essentially getting past Ruoff and fending off Ruoff and Dubiel. And then he had himself in a great position in second place and then went to the pit lane, exceeded the speed limit, and that is a stock go. And that is so detrimental to his race.
It's such a shame. I mean, to be fair, again, if you were looking at a slightly longer endurance, so maybe a 6 hour, an 8 hour, 12 hour, you probably like a 30-second. Yes, it's a chunk of time, but it's not too bad, I suppose. As long as you've got the pace, it can be made up. However, with a race that's only got an hour and 23 minutes left to go, that's a little bit more tricky to manage. That's just a little bit more tricky to really sort of work with. So, yes, unfortunately, not ideal. Yeah, so at the moment, Lars Tuzri, he is again the teammate for Felix Rupert in the Audi R8 LMS Evo, the XL racing car. That's a big shunt there as well. Unfortunately, Michael Warmer, the number 100 Good Time Racing Audi, currently he was in P5. He's definitely not going to be in P5 now. I think, to be fair, actually looking at it, there was actually no contact as well from some different camera angles. Potentially there was no contact. So again, just lost it on his own accord. A bit flustered with the GC4 cars and other cars around him. A bit of an unfortunate mistake, but a mistake nevertheless. So hopefully no damage done though, actually, to be fair. So all in all, maybe just a small bit. Oh, that was last year again. That was a bit of a lunge. This is what we were talking about as well. I think with a gap of 19 seconds, you probably could afford to be a little more conservative than that. That was, I think the patience there should have been.
We have to be realistic. That was a dive bomb. That was the definition of a dive bomb. And of course, the driver's briefing we talked a little bit about earlier was very stern. It was a stern warning they got about the GT3's dive bomb and GT4s instead of using their power advantage. And yeah, I mean, we will see what will be thought of that by the stewards. Maybe to be the devil's advocate a little bit, maybe he thought that he was going to give him away and then he didn't. But either way, that is going to be under investigation, you would expect.
Yeah, it's a bit of a tricky one, isn't it? But yeah, I'm sure we'll see. I'm sure we'll see that. Probably hear some more information on that going forward.
Drive through to car 5 for avoidable contact.
Drive through for car number 5, and this could very well be the incident here. Let's have a look. This is, I believe, just going forward. What is going to happen here? Yeah, so there was a bit of contact with the Ginetta.
Yeah, so this is the number 100 Audi. That's Michael Warmuth, who has just inherited that car from Ruoff. Of course, we've seen Yannick Ruoff in the sort of second, third, fourth battle, but it's very unfortunate for the number 5 Audi, because of course just got a stop-go 30-second penalty for speeding in pit lane, and then they've got a drive-through for that avoidable contact, and I believe that it will be that contact we've seen going into turn 3 where he just came across the under braking and collected the 222 Ferrari. So yeah, that's understandable, shall we say.
Again, it's unfortunate, but at the same time, firm but fair. At the end of the day, you've got to be on the understanding of what happens. But then again, you move forward. You've got to sort of take it on the chin and move forward again. We've all been in that situation, and we will all be in this situation again. But first round of pit stops as well. Some gaps have opened up, some gaps have closed down a little bit. I think once everyone starts to really settle in, we're going to see that gap sort of like come down. Just been told as well. So this is Amaril Manchus as well. And as we go through into, this is a bit of a battle here as well. This is the battle for P24. As we've got, as well. The Audi just going, the Ferrari just going through. The Ferrari, that was the triple, I'm trying to think of the left me. That was the 958, the mixed wheels, driven by Garen Hamby. Not good there at all. Just misjudged the distance, actually, going through around turn 3. And I think the closing speed as well. I know these cars are quick, but again, something that I think again, you've got to be reacting. You've got to react quickly to these sort of things, especially the GT4s. Almost everywhere, they're a good chunk slower. In pretty much all sectors, so you just got to take that into consideration. So a bit of a shame there. I'm sure again the stewards will have something to say about that moving forward. But yeah, the battle for P24 is very much raging on. There is the 958 Ferrari. Can he get past? Yes, he does indeed. Nice and easy one, but again, it's got to be cautious as well because the Alpine there is there going to be I think a bit more caution there that time around. But unfortunately, damage was done.
Yeah, the damage was done. I think it's of course the problem or the challenge more so of multi-class racing. We've seen a few incidents, not as bad as some other multi-class races that you've seen or some other incidents. I think you've seen actually a lot of the GT4, especially the leader, who's created a little bit of a gap for himself. He is quite a chunk ahead of Cornelius in the 94. Of course, he's inherited that Porsche from Marcel Fusi. Cornelius has now stepped in that car, but he has a 15-second mountain to climb, you have to say, to the leading GT4, the Maserati, the number 69 car. But we've seen in the first stint, of course, that Maserati was opening up a gap. It was about 5 or 6 seconds ahead, and any time a GT3 got close, as soon as he seen him, he got an opportunity to get out of the way, but do it in a good way as a Cole. He did it in a good way where he would, he'd pull off to the side, he'd give the room, he wouldn't really lose himself much time. I think that's just about the perfect way to do it. And when he had an opportunity, he would let them go, because anyone who's participated in the slower class of a multi-class race knows that there's very little trust for the faster class when you're in a good position. You get a little bit paranoid.
I think it's paranoia, but in some respects that's that can be a good thing. That can be a good thing. But look, we've got through here again. Another battle. This is for now P20. This is P19. So you got Cornelius, Fox, and Kiefer as well that are all going to be battling through. This is the battle for P2 in class. So P19 overall, but this is the battle for P2 in class. And again, it's 3. Oh, I thought it was going to be 3 wide. It's going to be 2 wide going through turn 11. Is it going to be 2 wide going through turn 12? Marcus Fox. Oh, it's so close. Bit of contact there. They both go sideways. Managed to keep it all in check. Ferrari's being held up because he's just completely blocked off by the fact he's got 3 GT3 cars. You've got P3 as well coming up as well, going through and becoming that's a GT3 class as well. It's all concertina up. This is the really thing you've got to be careful of, is everything concertina's up, especially in that last the last chicane. It's all opened up again now, and unfortunately that was Marcel Fusi that was getting Marcel Fusi's teammate as well. That was Cornelius that got held up a little bit there, so he's dropped off the pace massively. Everything has just all kicked off, and great cameras there as well. But we got the space of about what you'd normally have an entire race. We got in the space for about 30 seconds there in all terms of action there, Connell. That was fantastic to watch.
Yeah, that was. I mean, I thought the McLaren there was actually going to wipe out all the pit pit boards on the front straight because he looked like he got a nasty spin. Started stepping out on him coming out of the last corner, and he was pivoting his car right to the pit wall. So that was a bit of a hurry moment for him. But yeah, you noticed there actually Cornelius made contact with Fox, but not, I wouldn't say give the position back. He didn't exactly pull off to the side and when he had the lead, but he didn't go for the position when he clearly had the advantage after the touch. So I think there would be no harm there with the stewards. I think there was no real time gained there from that little bit of contact. But yeah, that was a perfect example there actually of just how frustrating it can be as a GT3, because you've seen how long that Ferrari was just stuck behind the GT4 battle for the entire, I mean, from here to the end of the start-finish straight. And you know, it's all well and good when you've got a 15-second gap behind the car that you're battling with on track, but when you've got 2 or 3 cars directly behind you, you don't really have a lot of patience, and that's when you start racking up the penalties.
Absolutely, yeah. That's when patience is key. You've got to be a very, very patient person in a scenario like that, because if you're not, again, it will come back to bite you. Look at that. That's Kiefer as well. The brother of Daniel, I believe that is David, currently in the car at the moment. Yeah, these the brothers currently in the Mercedes doing very, very well. Speaking of, oh no, it's still Daniel in the car, actually. Apologies. It is still Daniel in the car for DK Racing. So number 57, again, the Porsche. It's got some pace as well. Look at that. Even without a toe, it couldn't, Daniel Kiefer couldn't catch up. So it goes to show how much pace that the Porsche does have. Again, a little bit sideways there from Kiefer as well, but he's going to try and go on the outside into turn 3. That's a brave move. Is he going to try and cut back instead? Look at the sunlight. He tries to go. Do you know what? You might actually make the move. If he can just about hold it. He can't quite, though. Again, the power, trying to get the power down. The car washed out a little bit too wide, but again, he's pushing Fox to go and to drive on the inside. He's going to try another cutback. Can he make it stick this time? He's got a better run going through. I wonder if he's going to try the triple cutback. He's tried this 3 times. Is it going to be a 3rd time lucky? Instead, he decides to drive around the outside. Is it going to work? The number 1374 has to yield. And what a move from Daniel Kiefer around the outside of turn 5. I cannot remember the last time I ever saw a move like that happen. Great move there from Daniel Kiefer.
Yeah, very impressed. Like, great racecraft there to try and get Fox basically to start driving behind him, looking in his rearview mirror and start going offline than the optimum line, and then he was able to capitalise. You know, when you have to go round the outside of T5, that you have forced the driver in front into some sort of error or some sort of offline move. So yeah, fantastic stuff there from Kiefer, and they've really dropped Cornelius. A little bit of a moment there actually for Fox, and hopefully he gets it together. He's lost a lot of time there, and actually Cornelius has jumped him, so he's lost about 4 or 5 seconds there, so he definitely at least spun around 90 degrees there at the hairpin.
Through penalty to car 86 for avoidable contact.
So avoidable contact for the 86 Audi, and we've seen, of course, the 86 up at the sharp end earlier on in this race, really was battling for the podium, and now it has gone all unraveled. It was Salvatore Polano who's in the car just in the first stint, and yeah, I think it is an incident with Polano, as you see the Aston Martin and the Ferrari getting very racy here in a sector which is very, very difficult to pass. Of course, you can see the sort of the width on corner entry there of the track, and it's very easy, isn't it, Dan, to get excited to think you can make the move, but as soon as you enter that chicane, it just narrows up so much.
Oh yeah, 100%. It just, you know, overtaking maneuvers are almost non-existent going through, unless you're very, very brave and you've got a lot of confidence in the next car that you're racing. Yeah, you've got to be a little bit careful and always err on the side of caution going through.
Warning to car 808 for ignoring yellow flags. Well,
there we go. Warning, ignoring yellow flags. Definitely not what you want to have in an endurance race. Definitely not what you want to have in a race, ignoring yellow flags, because, yellow flags, there's a danger on the circuit. And as we saw at the start of the race, you can potentially get involved with that danger that's on the circuit. Yeah, as well, we've got, obviously, naturally, it's only a warning, so a bit of a slap on the wrist there. Could be worse, obviously, but that's one of the things you've got to make sure of, is that one slap on the wrist. You only get one. You know, you've got to be careful. That's your first warning. But you do have to be very, very cautious. And Marcus Fox, currently as well, he's recovering from that slide, recovering from that small spin that he had, that half spin, I think, going through on the exit of turn 10. he's being pressured a little bit from Ohak in the Alpine, 7/10 behind. He's got Cornelius about 1.8 seconds up ahead, so he did lose about 6-7 seconds. Not what you want. Again, he's got an hour and 10 minutes to try and make that back up. Not ideal, and that has caused him, as I said, to drop a couple of positions. Depending on how the 312 Alpine can actually fare, he might be under a little bit more pressure as they go through these next stages of this race. Nearly, though, halfway through, an hour and 10 minutes left to go. And I tell you what, I don't know about yourself, Connall, but this first half has absolutely flown by.
Yeah, it really has. It always does. But yeah, it's interesting actually, the dynamic of the number 94 team, because Keffer is quicker than Cornelius, it seems, over the course of a lap, and certainly in the race pace. But yet, Fuzi is quicker than the other Keffer. So it's going to be a case of who loses the least amount of time when they've their slower driver in, isn't it? Because it's very, very interesting here, because we've seen Marcel Fuzi, who was he was about 5th or 6th at the start of the race. He was caught behind a few cars. Now he should have some clear air to really do his damage when he jumps into the car next. Of course, he'll be jumping into the car for his final stint, as will all the other drivers who started this race. So it'll be interesting to see, will Keffer be able to open the gap enough to limit the damage for when his brother jumps into the car, and when Fuzi also jumps into the car. So this is the sort of dynamic you will generally have an A driver and a B driver in terms of pace, maybe not by title. But you know that if you're the slower driver, you're just trying to do a little bit of damage limitation on you. You're just trying to limit the damage so that when your faster teammate comes in, he can really put the hammer down.
Yeah, I think that's the dynamic of having that between the drivers, isn't it? And like you said, not necessarily by name, but having that understanding. You know, having that sort of, you know your part you need to play. It's a very much a team effort, even with a two-man team. It's still a team effort naturally. You've got to be making sure that you're not, again, self-preservation always kicks in, especially again, if you know that you just need to bring the car to a point where you're the other driver as well for your team can jump in it and then put the laps in that they need to make some moves. But again, going through now, this is the battle still raging on between Cornelius. Actually, Fox has caught up Cornelius quite heavily now, so this is going to be, Cornelius does go wide going through into turn 1. I thought he braked a little bit too late, and that's going to cost him time. That's cost him one position. He's going to potentially have to let the Ferrari by. That was very, very close indeed, but all managed to go through okay. That's Ohak behind as well in the 312 Alpine. He has unfortunately dropped off a little bit though, but that is a free position pretty much for Fox in the 137 Porsche. And he's just gone, thank you very much, needs no second invitation, and off he goes. But importantly, he's already pretty much broken any toe that would be there from Cornelius. So unfortunate incident there, self-inflicted. But I wonder now if Ohak, if he's got the pace now to catch up to Cornelius. We're going to have to see how that develops over the next few laps. Meanwhile, I'm just looking at Jozabowski, who's got a 20-second gap over to Kiefer, who's now in second. So Daniel Kiefer, he's made up some positions. He's now in P2. Good stuff. And look at that, 19.3 seconds. I mean, yeah. there's not really much more you can say, is it there? And then we haven't really seen him. We haven't seen him too much on the stream. And again, I don't think they're going to be complaining all that much because they are leading by a sizable gap. I've just noticed actually as well, I forgot how long, it's almost the entire length of the straight, that Maserati. It's huge. I forgot how long the car is.
Drive-through penalty to car 52 for contact with car 51.
So the number 52 car is the Ferrari, the Silkina Endurance Motorsport car. That's Giuseppe Ali currently in the car. But yeah, it really seems as though there's 3 classes out there today, isn't there? There's GT3, GT3.5, and then you've GT4, because that Maserati is in an absolute field of its own. I remember seeing the entry list there just before we started, and we seen the Maserati almost scoffing a little bit because it isn't exactly the favourite GT4, but these guys proven, no matter what is the unproven or proven car to work around X track or Y track, depends a lot on driver input as well, and these guys are really showing that.
100%. And I wonder if we're going to see now after this, we're going to see more Maseratis being worked now and being used in these sort of events. But meanwhile, another battle going on here. This is Nikolay, and I believe in front that is Oesh as well. So the gap is only about just under 0.2 of a second. So there's going to be a potential. This is side-by-side battle going through turn 5. What is Nikolay going to do? Is he going to try and make the move? And he's going to try and pin it around the outside of the number 150 Porsche. I think he is, he's going to have to concede them, unfortunately, going through turn 7 and then turn 8, but he doesn't try and give it up too easily, though. I personally probably would have given it up there and tried to get the move, but he's still very, very close. So as they go through up into turn 9, got to make sure the BM, we know it's got a good amount of power on the straight, but that Porsche is relentless. You've got to be careful. So who is going to be the latest on the brakes? They've got a Ferrari to deal with as well, a GT3 car. We see Nikolay pull out. Is he going to again try and go around the outside? He gives it a go, but again, he's going to have to concede, I think, to a certain extent. He's not giving up, though, that easily. He's going to try and have to... No, he does have to concede, but then we got... That is Oesh. He's had to give a bit more room. So a move that's taken about 6 or 7 corners is finally done and dusted. Victor Nikolay, a great move and a very, very well set up plan. But Oesh, I thought that was going to be a move then. He tried to make the lunge, but couldn't get the car straightened up in time for the braking zone. So he gave it a good old go.
To car 958 for avoidable contact of car 11.
Driver 958, contact with 11. So that is mixed wheels 958 with Exodus Racing Esports. GT3 versus GT4. Not ideal and not what you want. But I mean, Connall, what a move! That was best part of the lap that took, but that was definitely worth it.
Yeah, we've seen the same actually with Kiefer. He set that up a couple of corners before, so we've seen some fantastic stuff. Hats off to this BMW. Victor had a phenomenal... Oh, okay. Yeah, no, let's go 2x2 here into turn 3. That's definitely going to work. And it has. So these guys are really getting racy. Oh, it hasn't worked. I've jinxed it. I didn't really say stuff works, because then there'll be a car in the gravel somewhere. But yeah, fantastic move from the BMW. Again, it's all about setting it up. As we see Kiefer now, is that a move? Oh, that's one of the Aston Martin GT3s making a move on him. I thought he was somehow catching the Maserati, which would have been a complete shocker. But actually, Kiefer was the fastest GT4 on track last lap round, about 0.6 quicker than the number 69 leader of the GT4s, and those two guys were the only two guys in the 54s. But unfortunately, 0.6 a lap isn't really going to do it to the Maserati with a 19-second lead. So just shows you when you get some clean air and you start opening up that gap and you start stretching the legs, you can afford to drop your pace off just by that little bit, because it's really unlikely with being the slower class in a multi-class race. It's really unlikely that Daniel Kiefer will be able to keep that pace up every single lap.
Yeah, I think this is the thing, isn't it? Like, an out and outright pace is good, but there's so many different factors coming in. You've got GT3 cars. I mean, the biggest factor in the multi-class, especially for the GT4 drivers, is there's just so many GT3 cars on the grid that you've got to have that little bit of... You can't expect to be doing that lap every single lap, and why would you? Again, it's I mean, if you can do that sort of lap every single lap, that is impressive. In a multi-class event, that is very impressive. Although at the same time, though, you look at if you look at glass is half empty, glass is half full kind of way. You've got Jarzbowski, number 69. Obviously, he's going to be having some traffic woes as well, and we can see on the timing standards, he's just pulled another 0.3 out. It does tend to even out, so it generally you will find that it all ways towards the end of a race, it does normally sort of even out, but at the same time, sometimes one person has more luck than another when it comes to traffic, and again, I'm sure everyone that does racing has been in both of those positions as well, so they can probably understand where I'm coming from with that. That was a big... I thought that was going to be a lunge there for the 86. That was the VIG Project Strato purple car. They've been in the wars a little bit with this race. They don't want to get any more don't want to get into any more trouble. But that was very, very close as well. We've got a replay here from... This is Gooch in the 222 Ferrari. What goes on here? Going through into turn 5. Is it going to be a little bit too early on throttle? Seems to be all okay through turn 5. But again, going through into turn 6. Could it be a little bit late on the brake? On the grass. Yep, that's going to be understeer off. Unfortunately, yes. No harm, no foul. Managed to keep it back on track and off they go. But yeah, when you grab a piece of gravel or a piece of grass in the heavy braking zone, that tends to happen.
Yeah, it does. It's very easy done actually down into there, because you're coming down sort of at an angle. You're trying to stay out wide to the latest possible point and trying to hook it in, hit that apex, and get the full drive and sort of straight line the car up the hill as much as you can. So it's actually very easily done and it's just one of those lapses of concentration. You go out a little bit too wide, and as soon as you get on the grass, really there's no way to hook it back. You just find your car sort of straight line itself into the gravel, and there's no way to get it done. We're starting to see pit stops now. The 373 is the first car in the top 5 at least to make this pit stop. And the Audi unchallenged so far, really, much like the leader of the GT4 race, unchallenged. So we've really seen the fastest in GT3 and the fastest in GT4 be light years ahead of the rest, really. And it's, to be honest, when you look at the lap times per lap, it's only really half a second, 6/10 when they're in clean air, when everyone's in clean air. But it's when you get involved in the battle, the leaders of both classes have had clean air for all the race, and they've just been able to do basically a race simulation because they've had no bother bar the GT3s coming through. So it's very difficult to actually bridge that gap then when you've the pack of wolves directly behind you, breathing down your neck, trying to get up the inside of you.
Absolutely, I think you got to look at. You've got a lot of different, like I said, all the variables. But the less variables that you have, naturally, the more consistent you're going to be. And by not actually being in battles, that's obviously going to help massively. James, that is the VRM racing car, the number 89 Lamborghini. James Spivey in the pits. In the pits. I don't know what I'm saying in the pits. He's on track. He's going through out of the exit of turn 3, coming into turn 4. He's actually up into P5, so he's doing a very good job indeed of making that move. He is going to be losing out because we have seen as well the next round of pit stops. That is. Looking through the number 373, that is Tutor Janelli, that is in the pit. So he's only got one more stop to go. We've seen a couple of people now. So the number 173, Sen, is now back out in the car as well. Lecky is also back out in the car for the number 808. So all these drivers are starting to make their second round of pit stops as we tick over the first hour. Bottom right corner of your screen, GT4 leader in the pits. That is Jarzabowski that's coming through. So whether he will be staying in the car, not entirely sure. We'll have to see how that goes. But that does mean that Daniel Kiefer, for this moment in time, temporarily has been promoted up into first position. And so we can see on the screen now, when is he going to pit? He tends, I think we saw with the first round of pit stops, he will be pitting about a lap or so later. Now, I don't know about this, Connall, but that shows to me that the Mercedes is very, very good on fuel.
Yeah, I think that's a good indicator. Of course, we don't know whether the Maserati was pitting based on, their scheduled pit stop, whether he wants his faster teammate in potentially, even though he's doing a phenomenal job himself. But does he want Secola in, who did put it on pole, who did open up that gap initially, and have him in as much as possible? It's difficult to tell, but certainly it is a good advert for the Mercedes GT4 that it is indeed good on fuel. And why waste this good track time? You can see in front of him, you can see on his real time on the bottom left of the screen that he has clean air. So why not stick in that clean air and try and do as many laps where he can just have his own race and potentially, I don't think, of course, he'll bridge the gap to the Maserati, but at least he'll open up a lot more of a gap to the cars behind if something is to happen when the GT3s come past them next.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we're going to see how, obviously, half the race has gone. We'll see how this next half develops. But again, lots of things can change. Lots of things can happen as we go through. This is Alistair Lecky, the number 808 Aston Martin, that is currently in P12. And just behind this is the number 958. That is of Smoke currently driving the car. Ooh, we nearly got... Oh, no! 3 cars don't go into one space. That was not good at all. Again, I think that was the 958. Just got a little bit flustered there. Trying to... you saw that as well. That camera angle actually displayed that perfectly. So you see the 958 car have to dart out at the very, very last minute as they go through the very last minute to avoid the Ginetta. But unfortunately, that's in the braking zone. And if you start trying to load the steering up as well as braking, the tyres don't tend to fare so well. So, unfortunate through there. But, all in all, no real harm done there. Obviously, a little bit of time lost for both drivers. But, I'm sure the stewards will still be looking at it as they would do normally. But Lucas Secola is currently back out in the car. So the faster, I believe, of these two drivers are back now with the gaps actually well, if we're looking at it now, the gap is 30 seconds still. So again, these drivers, the two guys up ahead in that Maserati, are just so fast. It's absolutely unreal the pace that these guys have got. That is Jarzembowski and Segola. I mean, it's just relentless, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is, and it's so hard to actually bridge that gap. You know, when you've got a person, you can see, you know, you'll do a lap and then you take 2/10 out of them. You go, great, this is the breaking point. And then, of course, you're pushing so hard that you make a small mistake, and then you lose half a second. And I was like, well, there's those 2 laps of taking 2/10 out of them completely gone in one mistake. And it's just so difficult to actually bridge a gap with someone who's consistent. So it's a double-edged sword. Of course, you know, you want to, of course, bridge that gap over, but then again, at the same time, you start pushing too hard at a track like this especially, and then you will cook those tires and you'll find yourself at the end of your stint having a pretty miserable time, especially in the first sector, which is just a tire killer. But yeah, Alexander Raab in the 150. Porsche seems to be the most popular of the GT4s. You can see there are 4 at least in the top 10. Yeah, it's light, it's nimble. We've seen it in comparison to the BMW when they were battling there. It looks like 2 different classes of car, doesn't it? You can see them both on screen there now. And yeah, but it looks to be the car of choice so far at Barcelona. Of course, it's working well for 2, and it's working not so well for the other 2.
Yeah, very true. Actually, it's a bit of half and half here, actually, isn't it? But yeah, the Porsches tend to be sort of thereabouts pretty much everywhere. We've got a replay here of Alexander Raab into turn 1. So side by side as they come down, what is going to happen here? Darts over to the inside, naturally as you would do, to try and cut off. But then we're going through again, trying to hang on the outside. 2 cars again don't go into one space, and unfortunately, I mean, to be fair, that was I mean, personally, I think a racing incident. I don't really think there could have been one person. Yeah, I think it was a racing incident that could have happened either way. I think that would have gone personally. But at the end of the day, yeah, it's not my call. So I'm sure again, they'll be stewards will be having a look just to assess the situation. But and again, I suppose this is the other thing as well, Connall. From our perspective, these sort of different items, they can look different from different camera angles, can't they? I think that's the thing that is also a really good point to make. Is when you look at something on a replay, an incident can look completely different from multiple different camera angles, and certain camera angles can tell a bit more of a slightly different story. But naturally, there is one story that you will go with. But having access to all those different replay cameras is crucial, which is what the stewards obviously have.
Yeah, absolutely that. Even I think we've all been guilty of it when driving. When you're in the cockpit, of course, you have a different perspective. You see things a different way, and you, of course, see things a little bit biased towards yourself. And I've seen instances where I thought, oh, that's absolutely ridiculous. You know, it's completely not my fault. And then you check the replay from a helicam or something, you go, ooh.
Oops.
Actually, you know what? Maybe I have a part to play in it. But yeah, of course, the stewards will be looking at every possible angle, and it was only then that they'll be making their informed decision.
Absolutely indeed. But look at that, Marcel Fusey back in the car, Mr. Super Saturday, and he's got as well. That's Exposito. The 3 Porsches all on track, or 3 out of the 4 Porsches currently within this race here, all out on track in the same point as well. And again, all a little bit sort of like they're there or thereabouts. Like again, a bit of no man's land as well. Esposito is actually pulling out a bit of a gap, but then Marcel Fusey's just jumped back in the car. So once he gets into the rhythm, once he gets back into his groove, then we'll see those lap times drop down. I'm sure it will take him a little bit, maybe a couple laps or so, to really start to make that move. But he has been pressured actually by Raab a little bit more. So Raab is really, the number 150 Porsche is really hassling him. He has dropped off a little bit of time there, though, so maybe a little bit overzealous on the braking.
Ride-through penalty to car 137 for track limit violations, and stop-go 30 to car 719 for speeding in the pit lane.
Oh, another speeding in the pit lane, Connall.
It's pretty crazy because I haven't seen as many violations of the pit lane speed limit ever really in any I've covered. I don't know what is going on. Really don't know, but yeah, the 137. Thanks for pointing that out, Michael. Actually, suffering from drive-through P3 in class, so that's huge implications for the podium standings in this race. But yeah, and then drive-through for track limits. That is a little bit of a sickener, really, because I've had an incident there actually at Zolder in the Sprint Cup all but 2 days ago, where the Porsche is going to make it up the inside, doesn't get the pass done. But yeah, where I started the race and unfortunately had 3 track limit violations and left that to my teammate. And of course, the track limit violations, for anyone who hasn't participated in a team race in SEC, it's not per driver, it is actually per car. So unfortunately, my poor teammate was left with absolutely no warnings allowed. The track limits got drive through. So basically, I loaded the gun for him to shoot himself with.
Right. I mean, to be fair, like it's again, like yeah. So for those who don't play, who don't run on ACC, similar to what you have with iRacing, the incident limits, same thing. It's per car, not per driver. So again, it's a little bit. Yeah, I think giving someone 3 off tracks or 3 incidents, 3 track limit warnings to then go out and do a race with, not the best tactic. To pleasing your teammate, I suppose, Colin. But you like giving them a challenge. I think that's the best way to put it. You're giving them a challenge, aren't you?
It's just as well we race virtually, because I'm sure I would have been attacked maybe physically if we had an actual racetrack.
Oh dear. Well, I mean, to be fair as well, it is one of those things, again, have to move forward from it and just push through. Meanwhile, again, look at that. That is Marcel Fusey, again, hassling the back of Exposito, though. So, unfortunately, Rab has really dropped off the pace. Couldn't quite get everything sorted where he wanted to. We've actually got the 808 Aston. This is the final chicane incident from the 808 Aston here. The Alpha Course one. Oh, again. That was the 222 Ferrari that was getting involved as well. It was indeed the 222 of, correct me if I'm wrong, Team Valkyrie. So unfortunate incident there. Again, 2 cars do not go into one space. So a bit of a shame there indeed. But Sebastian... Fusey and Exposito, actually, we would, in the support race as well, we were talking about as well, in the support race that wasn't actually aired, but those Exposito and Fusey were having a very, very good battle indeed. So the battle continues on in a different race, shall we say, and I'm sure these guys are absolutely loving it. But Fusey has indeed got past Exposito, and the gap is now... the gap is extending as well. Obviously, track conditions are getting even cooler. 22 degrees track temps. This is where the pace of Fusey now starts to come in. We've seen this at the start, and we're seeing this obviously now. So the next person in his sights is Sebastian Apostol in the BMW M4 GT4. I'm seeing there as well. It's nice to still see it being used in it. The V12 Aston Martin. It's a nice sight to see. It's not used that much anymore, but it's nice to see it on the grid still.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, SimGrid has the Battle of the V12 races, which is very interesting indeed. Yeah, the Aston Martin V12 surpassed, you would say, by the V8, but talented drivers can still get a lot out of that car. I'm just actually looking in the YouTube chat. Conrad Kula, who is driving, of course, for KS Racing, the number 23 in GT4. They exceeded the speed limit in pit lane because they put it into second gear, and of course the limiters don't work in second gear. So yeah, that's one that I have done myself as well. And yeah, it's so unfortunate to get a pit lane violation, because it just feels as though it, it's one that you can look back on and go, that really shouldn't have happened. Whereas you get into an incident in a track and you go, I was trying for a move, I was on the limit, or I made a mistake while I was pushing for a hot lap. It happens. But yeah, it's a real sickener, but you just have to keep on pushing. Of course, we've seen a couple of the cars actually that are still somewhat up at the sharp end. They have had the serve drive-through penalties and have had serve stop goes or 10-second penalties in pit lane, and are still pushing on, and they can still get results. Of course, 45 minutes to go. Who's to say that 3, 4, 5 cars don't get drive-throughs or penalties for incidents further on? You just cannot tell, and it is the importance of staying through right to the end.
Yeah, exactly. You never know what can happen. Absolutely, you never know what can happen. And again, like there's so many different things that go on. There's so many different scenarios that could play that could play out again. It really, really does put into perspective again with this multi-class racing. That just adds another element, another layer onto the race as well. But yeah, 45 minutes left. A lot can happen in those 45 minutes. Fusey, though, still, he's there or thereabouts. He can't quite catch up to Sebastian in the number 31 BMW Motorsport GT4 at this moment in time. Again, whether he's sort of playing it safe, just sort of like trying to make sure and trying to take easy, trying to see where he's quicker or where he's slower than Sebastian at the moment. But he has come down a little bit. He's come down another couple of tenths. So I think we're going to see that sort of like, we're going to see the patience of Marcel Fusey, and then all of a sudden it will just be like the flick of a light switch, and then Fusey will just switch it on, and he'll be trying to get past as quickly as he can. But he has got the pace. We know he's got the pace. He's always there or thereabouts, and that will be for P4 in class. Jan Nicholas Ebrich as well in P3. So he's obviously inherited the P3 with the drive-through, the drive-throughs that came about. So the Alpine in P3. So 3 different car classes in the top 3 for GT4. But again, Marcel Fusey, you can see in the left-hand side, the timing tower on the left-hand side of your screen. He's taken another 10th out. As I say that, he's just got, that wasn't Commentators curse. I didn't say anything about that directly. So Marcel Fusey, unfortunately, lose it. Well, to be fair, I think that was a bit of a half spin. He doesn't actually lose out too much there. So no harm, no foul to a certain extent. He knows he's got the pace, but that does show as well that Marcel Fusey's got to be careful. That Porsche. So the only problem with it's slightly better as well. It's mid-engine, you know, with the Cayman, but even so, very, very tricky. You've got to try and manage it on the rear as much as you can.
Yeah, Yannick Ruoff, the one-time podium positioned 100 Audi, was looking very strong earlier on in the race. But of course, we've seen an incident right here, actually, right at turn 3, excuse me, for his teammate, of course, Michael Warmoth, who only really started a stint and got involved in an incident there. But yeah, you know, you could tell from Marcel's car, his body language is such that really, I mean, he was on the absolute limit trying to catch the BMW, as you would expect him to be. And then it just broke away a little bit at the hairpin. But being a second behind, only losing a second, of course, we've seen a couple of cars spin around like 90 degrees there at the hairpin and lose 6 or 7 seconds, really. So that is basically
drive-through penalty, car 222, avoidable contact with car 808.
So Chris Gooch in the Ferrari getting, I believe that is their second penalty of this race for the 222 car. That's very unfortunate. But look at this, we're almost a little bit biased here as we see Nipam Shah and that is Yannick Ruoff getting a little bit feisty with each other. Yannick isn't exactly finished. He's looking to go around the long way, keep his drive to potentially have the inside line, but Nipam does a fantastic job of keeping the inside line and keeping it defensive, blocking any chance of Ruoff's run. But he might actually stifle his run a little bit here at the last corner, and he does, because Ruoff is right up his rear bumper. But he is in the slipstream, of course. That Audi is very fast. We're going to see him pull out now. He is side by side, so he should have this, but of course we are entering a change of direction here, so Nipam could potentially defend. But Yannick has the inside line. He drops it a little bit deep, so he covers off the cutback in the change of direction. That's great driving from Yannick Ruoff, and on he goes.
Absolutely. I think that really goes to show that that was a driver that's calm and collective. Even when a move is made on him, they don't actually, you know, they keep it all nice and controlled, keep it nice and calm, and obviously the move is then made. But that, I believe, as well in the Aston Martin V12, the GT3 car, Charlie Kent doing a stellar job in P6, taking that V12. That's an old car, bear in mind as well. This the V12 Aston GT3. Is not it's not a new car by any stretch of the imagination. So to be put up against the new kids on the block is doing a very good job indeed. There we are. There is Mr. Charlie Kent, the number 91 car, with teammate as well, Jerry. That's Jerry Lippelin of this number 91 Aston Martin. So doing, like I said, a very, very good job in P6 at the moment. Oh, that was we just saw there. That was Zakola. The leader for the GT4 class getting a little bit sideways, going at a turn 10, showing off for the cameras there. But unfortunately, Charlie Kent just gets the car in the wrong place at the wrong time. And I mean, Yannick Ruoff just needs no second invitation, just goes, thank you very much. Perfect placement of the car. And I mean, to 2 positions in 2 laps. I mean, you couldn't really ask for more than that, to be fair, from Yannick Ruoff, and he's already pulled about about 3 or 4 tenths of a second. So a really, really good play there. I wonder if that was timed. I wonder if that was very, very structured, like all the way back 2 corners ago, probably 2 or 3 corners previously. Like as I say, that big sideways moment there going into turn 1, that's the direction change on the brakes as well. Shifts all the way to the front of the car, and the rear becomes really, really light. So not ideal there. Doesn't lose too much time though, all in all. I wonder if that was a very well timed move. So I'm guessing that was done a couple of corners back, but that was textbook. Really textbook.
It really was. And the GT4, the leader, of course, and the GT4 has played an absolute blinder for Yannick Ruoff. Of course, not intentionally, but for Yannick, he won't care whether it's intentional or not. But yeah, it's very interesting there. You can see the Maserati of Zakola looking very very tentative whenever a GT3 is around. He knows the lead he has, of course. Look at the gap there, 14 seconds he has. It has come down by about 5 seconds over the course of the past 20 minutes or so, but that's okay. That's just a management of the gap. 40 minutes to go, and we do still have a driver swap incoming. So Zakola has done his bit, and now will be leaving it to his teammate to finish it and bring the car home. But yeah, you can see the Maserati be very, very tentative around GT3s, excuse me. And when you see the way these guys are driving, I would be tentative too.
Yeah, they're pretty. Like I said, there's no love lost between these drivers as well, is there? As we see, that was Shad. That's the number 89 Lamborghini getting on the grass in the exit at turn 12. Again, not a place for getting on the gravel. Not a place where you want to be getting on the gravel in the slightest. But Charlie Kent still maintains his P7 with no real time loss no real time loss to the 89 Lamborghini behind. Again, I always think this, calm before the storm. This is where it now really starts to. Everyone's now got, once the final pit stops are going, it then becomes almost. I know it's been it's been a 2-hour sprint race now, Connall. But once the last pit stop is done, everyone knows where they are on track. There's no more pit stops to go. There's potentially no more drive-throughs to go. Like, that is it. It is, and that's where it almost like changes. Everything changes in the driver's minds, and it becomes a full-on, out-and-out sprint race. And I'm so excited for that. That's just going to be. You'll probably see the change of direction from everyone. You'll see the change of pace from everyone as well. People start pushing and trying to make a bit more time up here and there. So I'm excited for when that all starts to kick off, because it's the calm before the storm at the moment, I like to say.
Yeah, absolutely that. And just monitoring some of the lap times, Rupert is really in a class of his own. 43.9 was his last lap. Everyone else seems to be drifting in that sort of mid 44 to mid 45 time, and that's pretty much covering the entire extent of the GT3 field doing those sorts of lap times. I can't see anyone else even bothering the 43s. So that number 71 car of Felix Rupert is in an absolute class of his own. Looking at the GT4 times, I'm really monitoring that gap between Fuzi and the BMW of Postleigh, because that has come down again. We've seen, of course, he was right on the back of him and then made the mistake coming down into this hairpin right here that we have on screen. Lost about 1.5, and there he is now back in contention as such. We are getting to the end of Marcel's stint, and we've seen, of course, his teammate for this race just struggling a little bit was Josh Cornelius in the 94 car. When he jumped in, he struggled a little bit for pace. So we see if he can pick it up a little bit. It might, of course, have been a few incidents along the way that wouldn't have helped him, but Marcel, I don't know if he's going to get enough time in this stint to actually get past or get a chance to go past Apostle, because Apostle is maintaining a good gap to Marcel. Marcel isn't able to bring it down by half a second a lap there or something significant like that. But a GT3 getting in the way could help him all the same. But yeah, you wouldn't really be risking it too much when you know you've only maybe maximum a lap or two to go in your stint.
Yeah, exactly. But I think, to be fair, even that GT3 car that was driving past then, the McLaren GT3, then that will pull the gap down a little bit as well. So, and again, anything can happen in these last few laps. Nipam Shah is still racing with Charlie Kent, but more importantly as well, that's Udit Sen behind in the 173 McLaren as well. So this is a three-way battle for P7. And again, not too long though, as you say, before the final round of pit stops, and then. I wonder if it's going to be this close. If it's going to be this close by the time it comes to the last round of pit stops, this is going to be a good battle. I'm excited to watch this, and more importantly, who stays out and who stays out in the car, who jumps back in the car. It's going to be interesting. That's going to shake it up a little bit as well. But Charlie Kent has actually pulled a little bit of a gap now, looking at it. So it's a big moment there from Nipam Shah. He is being pressured and hassled all the way through the last few corners by Uditsen. But again, manages to keep it all in check and gets it all collected back up, and then doesn't really lose all that much time. But yeah, Charlie Kent is just utilising this opportunity to try and pull away as much as he can.
Yeah, Nipam is in this middle ground. He's the stuffing in a sandwich as such, where he's trying to catch Charlie Kent, and you can see him just up the road, and he does look as though he has the ability to close that gap, although he's getting a little bit wide on the exit of turn 2. But yeah, he also has to worry about defending behind him. So yeah, very difficult. If you even try and make one pass on Charlie Kent and it doesn't work out, then you have, of course, you have the car behind you breathing down your neck, and then you lose that position. And then what? You've now got 2 cars and a lot more work to do. But we have Marcel Fusi here right on the back of Apostle, 31 car. It'll be interesting to see actually how Marcel plays this. Oh, he's going to play it by spinning him around. I was just about to discuss maybe the long-term plan for Marcel. Will he go for it? But Apostle dives into the pits immediately, and that's let Esposito through now, and they're going to go side by side down the start-finish straight. So I don't know if Marcel will get a penalty because he, of course, gave the position back. But it was... Oh, as we see, one of the GT3s.
Whoa!
You know, he'd go through the middle of Esposito and Fusi. Flashing the lights there is Marcel Fusi. I mean, that would be a pretty good screenshot if one of these teams gets it after the race of the GT3 parting the Red Sea there.
Parting the Porsche Sea. I can't imagine Fusi was very happy. Neither was Rab there. So yeah, that definitely put an interesting. That's why I'm glad I had my mic off, because I started making some squeaking noises through there as well when something like that happens. But yeah, that was an interesting move there from the 808 Aston, but they all get through just about okay. No harm, no foul again. So, yeah, a rare mistake from Marcel Fusi there. But yeah, I mean, looking at it, well, he did back off. He did back off. A bit of time loss, obviously, for both drivers. A good sort of like 6-7 seconds. Not ideal, but at the same time, the move was given back, and the position was given back, all for a brief moment before the BMW then decided that they were going to jump into the pits, and they're still in there now. So the final pit stop. So at the moment, looking at it, I think they're the first pit. They are indeed. Apostle, Sebastian Apostle is the first person to jump into the pit. So he's the one that has jumped the gun. And are we going to see a few? I'm sure we're going to see now everyone come in and serve their final pit stops as well. That'll be the BMW making the first jump. So Apostle, we think he's still out in the car, as we've got a replay here. This is the replay of what happened. So between Marcel Fusi, so it was good. Again, it just goes through. I think as well. I think Marcel Fusi was expecting the BMW to actually be as wide as it was. Tried to look for a gap, and it was again one of those things where, I mean, the gap was always going to close to a certain degree. I don't really think there was much that, or to a certain degree, Marcel Fusi did that. But this is the overtake going through. Look at this here. That was about perfect in terms of car's width. That was an Aston Martin sized gap that was absolutely judged to perfection. Well, I'm going to say it was judged to perfection. Whether it was or not is a different matter by the Alpha Course Aston Martin.
Things down where if it works out, it's judged to perfection, but if it doesn't, judged so horribly wrong.
Indeed.
Around there, but yeah, Marcel was understandably a little bit upset with that, but yeah, that was a great still. It was a risky one, but yeah, it's over and done with, and thankfully what could have been a very, very nasty incident was not, so we're all good. You can see there on your left hand side of your screen on the standings, there is one car with a green sort of rectangle beside their number that signals that they've completed all their driver stops, which is 3, and they have completed all the mandatory items that they need in their pit stops. Nobody else has done so yet, but we should have everyone doing so when they make their next pit stop.
Absolutely. Look at that. Udit Send as well is with Charlie Kent. He is wanting this position sooner rather than later. Neither of these drivers have made, or neither of the teams have made the final pit stops though. So we're going to have to see how these guys fare. Are they going to be coming into the pits this lap? They probably should at some point, because they've only got 31 minutes left of this race. But I wonder, again, track position to a certain degree as well. When you come into the pits, it's always crucial. If you can try and get in front, as we see Udit said, is trying to get in front whichever way he can, but the Aston Martin V12 Vantage driven by Charlie Kent at this moment in time is not letting that happen. They've got a GT4 though in the way, but are they going to be jumping into the pits beforehand? Ooh, that was a big send there. I mean, no contact was made, but wow, what a send. And neither of these drivers actually neither GT3 jump into the pits, but avoidance there from the GT4. I couldn't quite see what GT4 that was. No, it was a Porsche, and it could have been one of 3 different people. But wow, I mean, yes, well avoided, well read from the. That was very well read indeed from the Porsche there, Con.
Yeah, it's funny, we were talking earlier about the paranoia. As we see, that's got to be contact. To be fair, the McLaren was running oh so close through 1 and 2, and got even closer on the entrance to 3. And just for a little bit of self-preservation, really, you'd have to say, should have give a little bit more room. Rolled off the throttle ever so slightly. Just got sucked in with the slipstream into the rear end of Charlie Kent. And that was a rare one, actually, where you could see it coming, couldn't you? You could see it coming with how close they were driving. But yeah, very, very unfortunate there for Charlie Kent, who in the Aston Martin V12, let's not forget, was doing an absolutely stellar job, and still is, up inside the top 10.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. I was just looking as well through the YouTube chat as well. A lot of people have been saying, "Udit, send it," and then when that happened, one of the first comment I saw popped up was, "No, not like this." So yes, again, as much as we want these overtakes, maybe not in that sort of fashion. That's definitely not how we want the overtakes as well. Look in the bottom right corner of your screen. That is Zakola in for his final pit stop. Are we going to see another driver change, or is Zakola going to be in the pit stops for the? Is he going to be in the car for the remainder of this race? But at the moment, as you say, Charlie Kent doing still a very respectable job. Absolutely. Again, another lunge up the inside, carbon copy of what he did last time out. And on he goes his merry way for another lap. Brad Smoke, P16 overall, and you can see on the left-hand side of your screen in the timing tower, there's a couple of penalties that have come up, which you're about to hear now.
Stop and go 10-second penalty, 10-second stop go penalty for car 958 for causing a collision with car 808.
There we go. So the 958 Ferrari versus the 808 Aston Martin. And unfortunately, the 958 with that 10-second stop and go, which they will be having to serve as early as they can. I'm sure they will be. Whether they're allowed to do a drive, this is the interesting thing. They've got one more driver swap to go. Will they just have to hold in the pits for a bit longer, or they have to do, as you can see, there we are, Brad Smoke going into the pits. Will he have to hold first and then they can do the driver swap? I'm guessing they will be able to, but at the same time, we'll have to wait for confirmation on that with what happens now in this pit stop. That is Yannick Ruff. He's being pressured very, very heavily by Santa Maria in the other McLaren, the 373. Again, goes a little bit wide though. That's not what they want. That should be a no-time gain for track limits there, but track limits nevertheless. And that's going to put a bit of dirt onto the tyres, a bit of marble onto the tyres as well. So not what you want at all. But Yannick Ruoff in P3 at this moment in time. But looking at it though, he's going to be losing out. This is the replay here. Are we going to see the replay? Yes, we are indeed. So this is between Charlie Kent and this is also with Udit as well. So as it goes through, yeah, again, as you say, Connall just gets so close indeed, and then just a little bit too close. You see, obviously, where we've got, again, just misjudged how fast he was actually closing in, but unfortunately, Udit Sen tries to send it, and unfortunately, couldn't quite make it stick that particular time. Yeah, it was a tricky one, actually. I was intrigued. I'm intrigued to see what it would be from a perspective of a driver's point of view, because, I mean, the closing gap actually almost, like, the closing gap was, it was there or thereabouts, and then all of a sudden it really the gap really closed up quite quickly. Whether again it's the nature of the Aston Martin, quite heavy over the front, so a bit of understeer build up possibly, I'm not too sure. But either way, a bit of a shame.
Yeah, you had one of the cars most renowned for understeering, and you had the car most renowned for great turning. So it was a bad situation that just went a whole lot worse. But of course,
Drive-through penalty. Car 173 causing a collision with car 91.
So Yannick Ruoff still holding on third position, but of course he now has to make a pit stop. So this P3 isn't really a P3 overall. It's P3 currently on the road, but with the pit stop still to do, he will drop himself down to about 6th or 7th here, because he still has his final driver swap to do. Interesting to see a lot of the drivers leave it so late into the stint, and only really giving the final driver about 20 minutes to finish out the race.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, 20 minutes, like I said, that's very much a sprint race as we go through. Whoa, that's a moment there from, that is Yves Oesch, and that is against, I believe, that's Matt Cooch as well, that's Rab, apologies, in the 137, just come out of the pits, and unfortunately not good at all. That's going to be a review from the stewards. I'm 100% sure that's going to be a review from the stewards. So, again, not good at all.
30 seconds, stop through. And go. Car 719 speeding in the pit lane.
Another speeding in the pit lane,
I'm done. I don't understand. Why so many drivers are getting stop-go penalties for speeding in pit lane. I've never seen as many speeding in pit lane violations in any races within the SimGrid that I've both participated in and commentated on. This is bizarre. Even races in Barcelona, I haven't really seen it that much.
Yeah, well, I think definitely the drivers are making the stewards and everyone working overtime, aren't they, at the moment? And to be fair, I'm sure there are going to be a few more coming through. This is where, 25 minutes left to go. So this is where now we're going to see, this is where the change now happens. And we've got, at this moment in time now, it becomes a sprint race. Pretty much everyone has finished with their pit stops. And then once they do, everyone knows where they are out on track. Everyone knows what's happening and everyone knows what pace they've got. Well, they should know what pace they've got.
Penalty, car 312 for track limit violations.
312. No, it's the Alpine of Jan Nicholas Ebrich that was doing a very, very good job indeed. Running at one point in the top 3. So unfortunately, he was actually, correct me if I'm wrong, he was actually leading. He's currently leading his class. So again, that's a bit of a shame. So that drive-through penalty, I mean, not good at all. He actually came out ahead. If you look, that is David O'Hara. He's actually come out ahead of Jarzabowski. So, and they've also got that drive-through. That's really sort of put a bit of a downturn on their event, especially so late in the race as well. 23 minutes left to go. I mean, they could have possibly held off Paul Jarzabowski, but unfortunately, no chance of that now.
Yeah, so it looks as though the Alpine has done a stop already, as well as the Maserati, and he's come out ahead. So I don't know if anything's happened to the number 69 car, but we will check that for you. But yeah, unfortunately, even if something has happened to the Maserati, he's going to inherit the lead anyway, because the Alpine has violated track limits. So yeah, we could have seen a potential change here, but we are not. So you can see there up at the sharp end, Keffer has jumped into that car, and he now has exited pit lane. So he has finished his stop, and he is ahead of the Maserati, and Fuzi has left pit lane. I presume it won't be Fuzi, it will be, of course, his teammate Cornelius, I hope. And yeah, we're going to try and figure out what's actually happened to this Maserati as we see another drive-through penalty for David Joseph, the number 173.
Are we going to be, we've just been told as well, so Fuzi hasn't actually done, Marcel Fuzi, you can see on the screen there, so he hasn't done his pit stop. It's on the left-hand side again, the timing tower. You can see, but we're just looking through, we're just trying to understand what happened with the Maserati. Potentially, I don't know if this is a thing as well, tyres, could they have taken tyres possibly when they shouldn't? We've just been told as well, we've just been confirmed they did have a drive-through. So there we go, even the people at the front and even the teams at the front, Forza Italia from Paolo Jarzabowski, unfortunately are still susceptible to driving as well. We've driving Speeding in the pit lane as well, I believe we're told. Speeding in the pit lane again from the leaders of the GT4. I think, again, Connor, you are probably lost for words.
I don't know why this is happening. Michael Hamlin's just confirmed that it was a minor infringement of the pit lane speed limit, so that's why you see a drive-through for them and a stop-go 30-second penalty for others who have sped in pit lane. So this is baffling. I don't quite know what is going on with these drivers for the amount of pit lane violations, but yeah, we'll have to find out maybe at the end of the race. But I'm so gutted for the Maserati. They've done absolutely everything. Pole position, not a comfortable pole position, but a strong pole position, and then just completely checked out in this race. And now look at the gap to what we presume will be the race leader, Keffer, and the Mercedes, who really looked like they were out of it. I mean, at one point there in the last stint, 14-second gap it was, and that's when the Maserati had really backed off and was just bringing it home. So yeah, it really does. We said it earlier, didn't we, before the race started. Race isn't over till the last few minutes have finished.
This is absolutely true. 20 minutes left to go. It's just about to tick over to that figure there. And as you say, who knows what can happen? Absolutely anything can happen. Speaking of anything that can happen, Daniel Kiefer getting very up close and personal with a Ferrari GT3 car and manages to negotiate that all successfully. But he has got the McLaren GT4 who's going very, very deep into the corner with number 719. That is Mulholland that's currently driving that car. Lamborghini GT3 as well. Navigate all nice and clean. That's Swimming in the 89 Lamborghini. So yeah, Daniel Kiefer as well. At the moment, he will be, correct me if I'm wrong, once Fusey pits, that will be Daniel Kiefer taking the provisional lead for the final stages of this race. But Marcel Fusey, he hasn't got too long. Actually, I'm saying that he is now in the pits. You can see, again, on the timing tower to the left-hand side, next to Fusey's name, you can see on his designation there, he is in the pits. So where is he going to come out? He did come in the pits quite early though, actually, compared to where Daniel Kiefer was out on track. This could actually be pretty close. This could be very close indeed. So there we go, the bottom right corner of your screen, there is Marcel Fusey. Is he going to be staying in the car? He might very well be, but if he's going to go, he's going to have to go soon, because Daniel Kiefer is going down. He is now on the back straight, the main straight. And I think, do you know what? He's going to do it. He is indeed, because look at that, Marcel Fusey just in the pits, out of shot, and he is now dropped down. He does get going, though, so again, I don't think, you've got 18 minutes left of this race. Again, I'm not saying anything, but at the same time, that is a very, very big gap to make up. So at the moment, Daniel Kiefer is really making moves here at the moment. But I wonder where Jarzabowski is out on track.
Yeah, we're going to, of course, see the gap. It's 18 seconds from Jarzabowski to Keffer. So we're going to see when Fusey, of course, who came out of pit lane well behind Daniel Kiefer, we're going to see the gap, and that will be the battle for P2, the number 94 and the 69. So keep an eye out when we get through the next few split points, and we will get the official gaps there. But yeah, absolutely gutting for that Maserati. Really had this race wrapped up, and now the pressure is on the Mercedes, the lead Mercedes of the Keffer brothers, where they have to go out and not do what the Maserati did. I don't know how many, of course, track limit violations they do currently have, but yeah, just stay off those curbs. If you do start drifting out onto the green, just make sure you're not climbing up on your delta, and then you should be okay. But luckily enough for the rest of these drivers, they have no more pit stops, so hopefully no more pit lane violations that we will see, which is, I'm still baffled as to what's going on, but maybe we'll find out in the post-race interviews.
Well, it's about to say, hopefully you wouldn't see any more, we hopefully won't be seeing any more violations of that, but you never know. At the end of the day, anything can happen. We've seen some interesting things happen in this race. I'm sure we're going to be in treat for a few more. I am absolutely sure. Yes, Daniel Kiefer, there he goes. He just needs to maintain for the next 19 or so minutes. He just needs to maintain that gap and move forward. We've got a car off track as well. You can see, I think that's 719. That is the McLaren you just saw on your screen. On the track map, getting stuck, I think, somewhere along the La Chicane. Just got looking as well. We've been talked about the 120. The 120 Bentley has actually got quite a bit of damage, we've been told, as well. to the actual car itself. That is driven at the moment by Manouche as well. So we might get a shot of that. Let's see how damaged that car is. So has it been in the wars? We've seen a couple of cars that have been in the wars today. All the way through, we saw cars that have been in the wars. I've said we've just been told as well. I see. So we're going to be looking at potentially a replay of that going forward, and that would be where I've noticed the 719 car. So that's why the Bentley picked up the damage. It was the Bentley GT3 versus the McLaren GT4. So let's see how we can get on that. Josh Thompson, Josh Thompson, though, the 316 McLaren, he's pressuring Morris at this moment in time. But let's have a look at the replay here. Let's see what happened. Is it going to be a lunge going through? Yes, it is. And, oh dear, yeah, that's what happens when you run over the curb a little bit in a GT3 car. Which is
the good old motocross lane through the Catalunya track. If we get a still image of that, I'm pretty sure the car was at least like 2 or 3 feet in the air. That was absolutely stunning, and I hope the McLaren wasn't looking in his rear view mirror when that incident was happening, because he would have got the fright of his life. But we've got a drive-through penalty.
Drive-through penalty, car 222 for violating track limits, and stop-go 30, car 172 speeding in the pit lane.
So we didn't get the end of the speeding in the pit lane incident. 222 has got a drive-through. It's ever more baffling for me. I'm pretty sure over the course of this race we've seen at least 10 to 15 violations of the speed limits in pit lane, so I'm not quite sure what is happening, but regardless, it's sort of what it has done is really mixed up the field.
I definitely think, mixed up the field is definitely the word I would use. Absolutely, it's we've definitely seen some changes we've seen some changes in the pit lane, and that's caused a big ripple effect out on track. But Josh Thompson currently still in P11. We've got the other McLaren as well, driven currently the 173 McLaren, driven by Joseph. Nearly gets caught up with the Porsche GT4 there. Manages, though, to avoid it just about. So, yes, coming into the final stages, this is it. This is where the sprint racing comes through. As we can see there, we have got, that is Morris. Morris currently on your screen, Joshua Morris, the 808 Aston Martin. And he's got a bit of a gap again in front and behind him. He's currently sandwiched between two GT4 cars at the moment. But he's going to be negotiating the Porsche relatively quickly, and there we go. Yeah, so now that everyone's had their pit stop, this is now where everyone can see where they are out on track. The gaps are a little bit larger than I would have expected, but again, we've got different people in different cars, different levels of pace now. So in these last 13 minutes, these gaps that you can see here that are sort of like 3 seconds, 5 seconds, 7 seconds, you'll be surprised they will start to come down or try and extend as well, possibly depending again on these different paces. We saw that in the last couple of stops. We see these different sort of pace levels. And I'm sure we're going to be seeing that again through this last second, especially also as well to think you've got GT4 cars getting in the way as well, that Lukaszek had there as well. He's not going to be wanting that at all. I know he's got a fairly sizable gap, and he's comfortably in P3 at the moment in terms of position-wise and track position. But at the same time, anything, as we have said and as we will keep saying, anything can happen in these last 13 minutes of this race.
Yes, we see the P3 guy get into the gravel on the exit of turn 2. Now, we have seen, here's your leader, Daniel Kiefer, in the number 57 Mercedes, and Jazarbowski has got that second place, and he has opened that gap over Cornelius, the 6.5 seconds. So that second place is pretty much in the bag for the Maserati now, although I said that about first place about 20 minutes ago, and now look at the situation.
Well, exactly. This is what I mean. Anything can really, when you actually look at it, it's amazing how a small little sort of error, even with a gap of about 20 seconds, you think at one point it was 22, 23 seconds. I mean, again, that one gap, that one small little error, and that drive through, stop and go, whatever it may be, that can really, really harm. It's amazing actually that Jazarbowski, and again, credit to where they actually, again, the pace that they had and what they had in terms of a gap and a lead, that they had an entire drive-through, an entire pit lane drive-through, and yet they were still able to come out comfortably in P2. I think as well that they've definitely worked some magic with that Maserati, and I wonder if we're going to be seeing that be used a lot more by these guys here, especially obviously naturally from the Forza Italia esports team.
Yeah, just looking at the lap times, it looks as though the leader again dropped off their pace to a 44.2, which is still the fastest GT3 out on track, which just shows how much of an advantage that they had over the rest of the field. They've dropped their pace by about 6 or 7 tenths, and they're still the fastest GT3 out on track. But looking at the GT4 times, we can see a lot of 54s going in. It seems to be mid 54s to mid 55s still maintain that consistent pace. Actually, out of the top 3, Keffer was the only one in 55s, everyone else in the 54s. So really starting to bring it home with the last 10 minutes to go, staying out of danger, staying out of trouble with the rest of the GT3s, I presume. 16-second gap he has. It's basically like the rules reversed all but 20-30 minutes ago, where Jazarbowski had the 14-second gap. And Keffer was the one trying to hunt that down, although it was a very hard gap to hunt down. It's going to be an even harder, if not impossible, gap for the Maserati to hunt down. 16 seconds in 10 minutes really does not seem viable. But of course, you see a couple of GT3s going for the final position on the podium, say, for example, in the last few minutes. They won't care about the leader of the GT4. They'll be trying to muscle their way through, and then it could all still happen. So you really don't know. And we were talking earlier, of course, about the paranoia and GT4 drivers. As you see, Lars, the pole man, the race winner, or the race leader, hasn't won the race just yet, making his way up the inside of turn 1, no harm done. But yeah, it's very interesting to see the paranoia set in that early on. We were talking about it earlier, and I think the last 10 minutes will be where the GT4s will be most willing to get out of the way, especially if they're in a good position. They'll be that desperate to maintain that position that they get out of the way. But also, you have to think of it, Dan. The GT3s have just spent almost 2 hours now, finding out where the GT4 braking markers are, where their lines are, what way they take corners, where they gain on the GT4s, and then you're going to have GT4s, potentially like moving out of the way in awkward positions and just catching the GT3s off guard. So I think that's what we've seen a couple of times, where either the GT3s anticipated the GT4 to get out of the way or not get out of the way, whichever, and get caught out by that. So yeah, if I was GT4 right now, of course you'd be exercising caution. And speaking of exercising caution, that wasn't really cautious there from Gianluca Bellucci, getting up the inside of one of the GT4s, the 227, making himself known, giving him a little spin around just so he can see him through the cockpit and go, hello, I'm coming through. But yeah, it's what we're saying, exercising a little bit of caution, and then of course, to just completely make me look like a fool, Bellucci sends it up the inside.
They can obviously hear us, can't they? They can definitely hear us on the stream. Yeah, as you say, I mean, this is also actually a good learning experience. You think as well, like all of this knowledge of what you've got here, you're learning with these GT4s. Like this can be very much applied sort of going forward, especially if you're new to this whole multi-class racing scene, which I believe we may very well have a couple of drivers that are new to this sort of multi-class style. So again, this is valuable knowledge that you can gain, so you can learn how to overtake, where these braking markers are, as you say. There's lots of things you can really learn, but I believe we do have another announcement from Race Control, possibly in a few moments' time. As we can see, I've just seen another incident pop up, so we're going to see about that in a few moments.
Right through car 51, track limit violations.
Track limit violations again. So Catalonia taking no prisoners is Circuit de Barcelona, and actually, to be fair, I mean nowhere near as much as we have seen with when it comes to actually. Oh well, GT4 nearly overtaken the GT3 car. Then wow, they both do tandem drifting there, Tokyo Drift style, but they managed to keep it all in check. Yeah, I thought that was going to be David Oak going to be trying to go on the outside of the Lexus there. Very brave move. But yeah, so drive through. Yeah, again the same. So not as many as we've seen in terms of like pit limit violations, but track limit violations are starting to creep in, actually. Not what you want with the last 7 minutes to go. But look at that, Alonso and Fox battling the GT4s. Again, speaking of track limits, if these guys are very, very close, which they could very well be, we don't actually know, then the battle is the last thing that either of these drivers want.
Yeah, it's the worst thing when you're trying to defend a position and then you realise you've got that sort of just hanging over your head, where if you run a little bit wide, as you see, they're already going round the outside on the last corner. That's absolutely crazy, but he got it done. We haven't seen any of the flashing of the lights from Fox, it was. And and the Audi gets it done again on the second Porsche. But when you have that hanging over your head, it's so difficult to sort of maintain that position, because you're trying to drive that little bit careful, because you know how the repercussions, especially in the last few minutes, the repercussions of a drive-through penalty when you get it for track limits is just so damaging compared to the sort of 2 or 3 tenths you've rolled off the throttle with. So yeah, it's a tricky situation to be in. Of course, we could be looking at a battle here between number 64 and the 137, and actually they could have no track limit warnings, but we just don't know. It's a tricky situation. I didn't think actually Barcelona would be as bad for track limits. Of course, there's a few corners, such as the last corner, where you're trying to get every single thing out of the car, and then you can just find all 4 wheels going out, drifting out onto the green. But it certainly isn't one of the tracks that you would think would be the drive-through killer. But you think of other tracks like Misano, which is a little bit worse that we've seen historically. But you look at especially just there behind these guys on the start-finish straight, you can see, the back straight, where you can see potential for cutting the track. But I think the big shocker for me, Dan, I've said it time and time again, is the exceeding speed limit in pit lane. I think there's been about 10 or 15 penalties, as we've said, and it really has changed the complexion of this race, hasn't it?
Oh, it has indeed, absolutely. It's really changed it. I mean, to be fair, you think as well, look at it, P2, P1 leading by 20 seconds to P2, being 20 seconds behind. So it's amazing how the dynamic of a race can change. But this is the battle that we've got on screen at the moment, and this is the battle that we're going to be keeping an eye on for the remainder of this race. This is Marcus Fox in the 137 Porsche, currently also battling the number 64 Porsche, driven by Jordi Alonso. So this is going to be a very, very close battle in these closing stages. Although, looking at it as well, the gaps are maintaining. They're staying there or thereabouts. Nothing has really sort of moved at this moment in time. As I say that, no, Fox is going to prove me wrong. He's pulled another 10th. And he's pulled a bit more on that as well, you can see there. So Jordi Alonso, he's got to make sure he's going to have to think sooner or later about putting his car in a position, but the McLaren got the inside. Which McLaren is that? That's one of them. That could have been the 500, I believe it was. So that's the 500 McLaren. The Ford Italia, that is the McLaren, the Forza Italia esports team going up the inside. So that's actually dropped Fox a little bit further back. So he's got to make up all of that time again. And this is where the frustration sets in. I've been again in that position as well, and you've got cars lapping you as trying to lap you as where they can, but it causes a little bit of it just causes you so much frustration, especially if they're holding you up.
Yeah, absolutely that. And when you start seeing that clock ticking down, 3 minutes to go, another couple of laps, you start getting that pressure. Time is of the essence, and then that's when the mistakes really do get made, because then instead of spending a few laps here and there when there's 50 or an hour to go in the race, spend a few laps just trying to set up the move. You really have to go on an impulse pass here, as we see here. Another incident for Ferrari. There's been a lot of Ferrari incidents that's just it breaking away in the middle of the corner. It's very easy to do in quite a sensitive cars. We see Alonso now in the pits with 2 minutes to go. We've got yellow flags out. This is a bit of a strange one, Dan.
Well, a bit of a strange
penalty, one. Car 173, track limit violations.
173, track limit violations, not good at all. Yeah, I'm interested to see why Alonso was in the pits. That's a very, very strange thing. Could be fuel. They might not have enough fuel. They might have to come in and refuel for the last couple of that. So Not good at all, but look at that. Lars 2-3 as well in the 71 Audi R8 LMS for XL Racing by Ren Velten coming through. He's got 2 minutes left to go on the clock, which means there will be 2 more laps to go. And then he will be taking the car home. I mean, again, you couldn't really have more of a dominant drive if you tried. I think, to be fair, 65 laps, it'll be 67 laps completed by the time this race is over. But again, the Audi showing top step at this moment in time. I mean, it's just got so much pace. Another replay here of this is Fox apparently getting involved in an instance. Let's see how this goes. Is it with the Ferrari? Yes, it is indeed. Oh, what on earth happens there? What has happened there? So not good at all, but we just been told as well the leader is on the final lap.
Yeah, well, it's been an absolute stellar drive from both Lars and the 71 Audi. Just looked absolutely immaculate. Lars and Felix Rupert. Rupert really, from the start, I mean, he got such a phenomenal start. He opened up about 2 or 3 tenths, and really that was all the scene of him the rest of the field, because he just checked out. And then Lars has done a fantastic job himself of just staying calm, staying consistent, and getting into his rhythm and not really making any mistakes. So absolutely fantastic stuff from these guys. Have looked just immaculate. But yeah, I thought actually potentially we've seen the incident. Alonso was potentially hit into the pits, because I seen when we just cut away that of course Fox was sideways, but no, looking at the replay there, of course Fox was caught up in his own incident. And I mean, with 2 minutes to go, I mean, a GT3 and a GT4 come together like that when they're in no close battles, it's a little bit of a why does this have to happen here with 2 minutes to go on to the last lap of the race?
I know, yeah, indeed. It's been like I said, there's so much happened in this race. No one could really tell what was actually going to happen towards the end. But I believe as well we're going to know what's going to happen in these next few final corners. So that is Lars Tudori. He's got 2 more corners left to go, and then he will be taking the race victory. 1 more corner left to go. How is he going to do it? He negotiates it. He negotiates it all nicely. Look at that. Done and dusted. XL Racing by Ren Velten. Lars Tudori takes the race win. A great performance from the team there by both drivers. Fabio Santamaria takes a P2 in the 373 car, which I'm sure he will be delighted with. And then also we've got a little bit further down the field, we have getting held up by a couple of GT4s, just for good measure. That is Wojciech Lukaszek taking the P3 spot, going through again. A very, very good drive indeed. We've actually got some GT4s that are coming across the line, but importantly, the GT4, the leader of the GT4, does indeed have to complete a full lap. Declan Bowler from PP Motorsport, the only Porsche in the GT3 field, taking a very respectable P4 indeed, with an Audi just behind. That is number 139, driven by Tate at the moment. So these guys just negotiating themselves for the final couple of corners, and then they will be coming home to the checkered flag. There is Daniel Kiefer, who's coming through. He's got half a lap to go, and then he will be us with a very interesting turn of events. He will be taking the win for the DK Racing team Mercedes AMG. Again, a bit of sideways action just for good measure on screen. I said he obviously knows that he knows people can see us. He knows that we can see him. So 3 more corners to go, and then he's going to be taking the checkered flag. I mean, I don't think these guys expected that, did they, Connall?
No, really didn't. It's not as though they were gifted it, because they didn't make the mistake the Maserati did. They had to do a lot of work to get this win, but Daniel Kiefer comes over the line, takes GT4 class honours. Absolutely phenomenal drive. He, for my money, had the move of the race, actually going around the outside at turn 5, of course, and he had to do a lot of work to actually get that done. So it's phenomenal stuff, and yeah, he stayed in it to win it, and then when the Maserati faltered, he was able to pick up the scraps.
Absolutely. If you're not in it to win it, you've got to be in it to win it, as they say. And Dan Kiefer for the DK Racing team was definitely in it and ultimately won it. So great stuff indeed. That was really, really good. I thoroughly enjoyed that. And all being well, we're going to be having a chat with a few of our drivers for the event. So we're going to have those come through in a few minutes. So we'll be back getting through, and we'll be having a chat with everyone. So I'm excited to have a chat with people that we do here. So we've got P2 from the GT3 car. So let us bring in. Yes, what we're going to have. This is going to be the 373 car P2. We actually just had, Fabio Santamaria. Let's bring him in to the commentary box now, along with Francesco Tutinelli. So bear with us a few minutes, and we will bring them in. Good afternoon, or good evening, Fabio and Francesco. Hope you're both doing well. Firstly, congratulations. Really, really good stuff. That was a very, very good performance indeed from yourselves. And just a couple of questions for you. So, Fabio, from your perspective first, how did the race go for you?
Wow, it's very, very good. We try to push hard on the final stint, but the first team was such fast. So we are happy about that second. So fantastic race.
No, really, really good stuff. Really good stuff. That was very excitable to watch. Really, really good. And like you said, I think to be fair, with the pace that the leaders had, can't complain at all. Francesco, from your perspective as well, what was what were the tactics like? Was it to go out there and just put the fastest lap in that possibly could and run hot laps for the entire race, or was there some strategy involved with the racing as well?
Well, actually, we tried to manage the tires through all the stints. But actually, in a moment, at my last stint, I had a small mistake, a little spin, and then we tried to gain some advantage from the third and to close the gap with the first, but it wasn't enough. Anyway, we are happy because we started the race in 6th position. And it was a very tough beginning of the race because I think that in a moment we were like 10th, but then we, with a very good pace, we reached the first positions. So we are quite happy. And it was a very, very fantastic race with the first one. And actually, cheers to the podium, to the winners, and to the third. So thank you.
Brilliant. No, really good stuff. Gentlemen, it's been an absolute pleasure. Look forward to seeing you again soon hopefully be chatting with you again very, very soon. But thank you very much for taking part in this, and well done again on P2.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And there we go. So that was Fabio Santamaria and Francesco Tutinelli from P2. In the class, we've got a couple of more. We've got a couple more drivers in as well, Connall. So I'll let you have it. Who do you want to have a chat with next?
Yeah, I think we'll take in Felix Rupert and Lars Tudry, the leaders and the winners of the GT3 race and the overall winners, of course. And well, first we'll have to start with Felix. Then he started the first stint. Felix, it looked easy, of course. I presume it wasn't, but. How vital was that start? I mean, it looked as though you were able to get the start early and get some clean air out in front.
First of all, hello. The start was pretty good. I had a pretty big gap already. I don't know what the other guys did, but I already had a gap for of a few meters, so it was pretty easy for the first corner. And from there on, it was just about getting into a rhythm and doing a great pace and not getting warnings. I did that pretty good, except for getting one warning. But
and how was it? How was it getting past the GT4s? Did you find many instances? I suppose when you have a bit of a buffer behind, it was a little bit easier to be a little bit more patient. But how, in general, how did you find getting past the GT4s?
In the last sector, it was a bit of a struggle, I have to say. But in the first stint, I didn't really have that much of a problem. I passed them at spots where it was pretty easy to pass them, mostly on straight. So was pretty chill, but in my second stint it was a bit more difficult. And so I was a bit unfortunate there, but yeah, still managed to pull a gap to P2. So yeah, not that disappointed. I'm pretty happy.
Yeah, the pace was incredible for you guys. I think when you actually dropped off the pace to manage the gap, you were still the fastest guys on track. But Lars, over to you. When you inherit a lead, when Felix builds up a lead like that, and you inherit a lead coming out of pit lane, what is the mentality? Is it still full attack, or is it a lot about tire conservation, fuel management, just staying out of trouble?
Well, it was like, I know that Felix is way faster than me, so it was like, don't get any big incidents or something, and get some pace, and don't get any crashes or something. Just dodge the field, get nice overtakes on the GT3s and GT4s, and yeah.
Yeah, and normally, for instance, like the Sprint Cup, when we see events that are like with 2 drivers per team, we see one mandatory driver swap, where we have an hour for one drive and an hour for the other. How was it being broken up into 2 different stints?
It was actually pretty nice.
Yeah.
It was like felt like a little like hot stint or quali session, with a little bit more safety, and yeah.
Yeah, I think you could just push all the way through. You didn't have to bother about tire wear or something. So that was quite cool.
Yeah, brilliant stuff, guys. And of course, as the victors of this race, anybody you want to give a quick shout out to or thanks to?
Yeah, congrats to P2 and P3, I guess.
Give a shout out. So there you go, guys. Thank you very much, and congratulations on the victory.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Well, there we go. There we go. P1. I mean, to be fair, again, look at that. They're not worried about tyre saving all that much. That's impressive.
Yeah, it was very matter of fact, wasn't it? They shut down my suggestion of being conservative, didn't they, and just managing the pace. They're like, no, 35 minutes. It was just hot lapping. But yeah, they certainly did hot lap, didn't they? They were ridiculous with their race pace.
Absolutely. Indeed, they were. We've got a couple more people that we're looking to interview. So we're going to be getting in the GT4 race winner, David Kiefer. So let us bring him in now. David, how are you doing? Firstly, I mean, I just want to say straight off the bat, well done. That was very, very good indeed from yourself and Daniel as well. Really good performance.
Thank you very much. Well, it was a pretty hard race. I lost a couple of places in the first stint. I wasn't expecting to lose the place, but we recovered pretty good. After my stint, Daniel just flew on the track. There aren't any other words. He was just so much quicker than me and just gained so much time, so that when I got back in the car, I just did a short stint, just trying to get some qualifying laps down. And well, then he just finished it, and we didn't even notice the drive-through penalty for the Maserati. Just at the end, when we were in P1. So it was pretty unfortunate for them. But well, I guess we were the lucky ones because we didn't get a penalty, even though it was pretty close, since we got 2 track warnings pretty early in the race.
Yeah, sorry. I think we've lost audio for Dan. So David, hello. I'll take over things. For you, how was it dealing with the GT3s? Of course, we've seen you were a long time fighting second and third in the podium battle. Then, of course, inherited the lead. Was there a bit of a change in approach and being a little bit more cautious around the GT3s when you did in fact inherit that lead, or was it the same approach?
Yeah, well, when we got first place, I told him just to stay calm and relax a little bit and don't be too aggressive, because when he took, even before we were first place in the second stint, when he took the car, I couldn't watch it in the beginning because he was just so aggressive, trying to overtake the GT4s, and just the GT3s coming on by. Yeah, it was definitely crazy out there, and some of them were did some dive bombs that were a little harsh, but we managed it.
Yeah, and of course, it's always worse when you're not in control of the car and you're only reduced to a spectator. It's always more nerve-wracking. But when you seen the Maserati, who was about 14-15 seconds ahead, when you seen that drive-through coming up, I suppose you thought all your Christmases had come at once.
Yeah, definitely. Because with the they lost a lot of time, and at the end we had 16 seconds gap between us and them. So it was after we've seen it an easy ride, because the other guys had some trouble on the track, I guess, and lost their time there.
Well, David, it was a phenomenal effort from both you and Daniel. Well-deserved victory, and congratulations, and look forward to seeing you again soon.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Well, there we go. Apologies about that, everyone. I am back after some mic issues, but we are back. What an event! What an event! I'm very, very pleased about that. It was great fun to watch, and yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure to be to be commentating alongside yourself, Connall, and as well to be part of SimGrid again. It's absolutely fantastic. I can't wait for the next one.
Yeah, great time. First time for us two together.
Yes.
Stuff. First multi-class race for me too, to actually broadcast over. I said it earlier, and I don't think I ever remember broadcasting or commentating over a multi-class race, and it really didn't disappoint. I mean, the different dynamic instead of just a single class race. Of course, we do have phenomenal races in single class, but the different dynamic is so refreshing. But of course, as Michael Hamlet is letting us know in chat, we have some more races coming up this week, Dan.
We do indeed, yes. So the next event for us is the More Female Racers by Thrustmaster Rockets on Monday. This is coming up, so only 2 days you have to wait before we've got the next race of that. And then obviously the big one, the SimGrid VCO World Cup. 24 hours of Spa. It'll be qualifying coming up on Thursday, ready for the big event at the weekend. I'm incredibly excited for that. I might be slightly biased because I am racing in it, but nevertheless, I am excited to be watching the stream when I'm not racing, but it's going to be a very, very good one, and I'm excited to be getting involved in that. The race is on Saturday, starting at Saturday at 12 midday British Standard Time, 1300 CEST. So do keep an eye out for that. But unfortunately, we do indeed have to wrap up for this race. Thank you, everyone, to watching and for sticking around. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on the stream. Big thanks as well to the SimGrid, as always. And also thank you to the sponsors for the SimGrid, for Coach Dave Academy and Thrustmaster as well, for helping make these events possible. It is absolutely fantastic, and we all look forward to seeing you again soon. Big thanks again to all the SimGrid staff, Michael Hamlet for being race control, and also Steve Proudly for being on cameras, and as well, Connall, it's been an absolute pleasure commentating alongside you. But as I said, we do have to wrap up. Thank you everyone for watching, and we will see you next time. So make sure, as always, you take care and stay safe.